Chapter 141 Becoming the Merit-Transferring Disciple. Regardless of the circumstances, this was Yang Chen's victory. Being a victor in a life-and-death duel against greatest heaven sex Li Qingchen was more important than anything else. At least, it was like that according to Gao Yu. A life-and-death duel was not a joke, generally speaking, only one person would survive. Since Yang Chen had survived, the complications regarding it were not very troublesome, since he still had opportunities. Very shy is quite beautiful, your luck with women is really good. After the tension had eased up, Gao Yu suddenly said this to Yang Chen with a smile which was not a smile. Only ridicule could clearly be seen in her eyes. She is furthermore a talented Zhanxian stage expert. After becoming Dao companions with her, your cultivation will surely advance by leaps and bounds. Alas. Yang Chen could not help but glance at his master, whose face had turned pale, and while taking a long sigh said. Li Qingchen was a descendant from the clan of Elder Li Yunyu of the Green Jade Immortal Islands, just what kind of trouble will she bring in the future? But at least you are alive, right? Regarding the earlier fact, Gao Yu was still in quite high spirits when compared to Yang Chen. Yang Chen was also not as happy as he should be after winning in a life-and-death duel with a peak foundation stage expert. Although Yang Chen's battle this time was quite simple, it made Gao Yu realize one fact very clearly. That Yang Chen still didn't have a proper flying sword. He still only had the weird large blade which he had been using from the time he started cultivating, as if he was afraid people wouldn't know that he had been an executioner. Gao Yu determined that this time, after she returned, she would immediately go and gather the best kinds of materials and make the best flying sword for Yang Chen. What kind of excuse could she say to him after she had stressed so heavily that she would refine it herself? Not to mention that the palace master had personally agreed to provide Yang Chen with a flying sword. But Gao Yu could not be blamed. She wanted to give Yang Chen the most suitable flying sword as soon as possible, so she had racked her brain, but had been unable to figure out what kind of flying sword Yang Chen wanted. Right now, he didn't need the flying sword, but it had to be able to fight other flying sword in close quarters. Despite being glad after winning the duel, he was not that happy after he had been forcefully assigned a Dao companion, even though that Dao companion was incomparably beautiful. Most of all, after Yang Chen thought of the cold expression on the face of the future cold plum fairy, even if they were together, it would be just like standing near a block of ice, which didn't exactly appeal to his interests. These issues must be cleared properly with the Green Jade Immortal Islands. It's just a misunderstanding, that's all. No need to take this seriously. Yang Chen shook his head, nevertheless thinking that refusing it was better. Otherwise, on that day, only Li Qingchen had appeared, but when she revealed her monstrous talent and cultivation in the future, countless number of people would come forward, that would surely be troublesome. Yang Chen was not someone who didn't know east from west after getting in the good graces of a beautiful woman, therefore he logically thought about handling this matter. Seeing Yang Chen so insistent on this, Gao Yu also had to endorse his decision as his master. But for some unknown reason, after hearing that Yang Chen had made this decision, Gao Yu felt very relaxed. The specific dealing still had to be negotiated between the Pure Yang Palace and Green Jade Immortal Islands. After all, the people who had come to watch were two Yuning stage experts from their side and only Gao Yu and Yang Chen from this, so their status was seemingly not equal. After returning to the Pure Yang Palace, neither dared to be careless and went directly to report to the palace master. Since the greatest heaven sect had truly renounced Li Qingchen, it was simple, and the matter would have ended with Li Qingchen's death and would not have had any more twists and turns, but his relation with an elder of the Green Jade Immortal Islands was really troublesome. Don't worry, you should take every step carefully. What was out of the expectations of the two people was that the palace master had been greatly optimistic regarding this affair, as if nothing had happened. It'll create some trouble, but they should have known not to use the life of my Pure Yang Palace's disciple to get in someone's good graces, isn't that right? This one line immediately made Yang Chen and Gao Yu feel an incomparable warmth. After all, he was the sect leader, so he could make disciples feel the sect's protection very easily. Regarding the matter of Dao companions, we will negotiate about that. The palace master continued, but he immediately made a huge turnaround. Yang Chen, very shy, would indeed be an exceptionally good Dao companion, you should think about it once. Regarding this, Yang Chen shook his head again. He would not like a Dao companion who had been forced on him. Fortunately, the palace master did not force him and shifted the conversation to the topic of Yang Chen's future plans. Yang Chen, in the near future you must not go anywhere. After he had praised the two people, the palace master began talking about the work assigned to Yang Chen. Since you have faced so many great affairs recently, it would be better if you could calm yourself and sincerely remain in the Pure Yang Palace for some time, alright. I have discussed about this with fellow apprentice brother Wang Yong. The Nine Earth Manor has been lacking a suitable merit-transferring disciple. Yang Chen, it would be good if you could go and guide the younger generations. Regarding the palace master's arrangements, Yang Chen had no say. He could do nothing but follow them. In addition to that, he certainly needed to calm himself and carefully increase his cultivation. Naturally, Gao Yu also rejoiced greatly. At least Yang Chen did not need to run around everywhere, facing dangers. The Nine Earth Manor was within the Pure Yang Palace's territory, so what kind of stupid enemy would try to behave atrociously there? You have to sincerely provide guidance in the Nine Earth Manor. Bao Yu warned Yang Chen again and again. Very soon, I will take a trip to the city to find the best quality materials for you to refine the flying sword. So during that time, by all means, don't stir up any trouble. Regarding Yang Chen's ability to cause trouble, Gao Yu had absolutely no doubts, therefore, before leaving, she sincerely admonished Yang Chen. Suddenly Yang Chen was full of expectations. This time Gao Yu would in all likelihood officially begin the refining of his Mingguang sword. Naturally, among the memories of his previous life, this was one of the few which brought smile to his face, even at death's door. In front of Gao Yu's repeated warnings, Yang Chen nodded again and then, without saying anything more, he headed directly for the Nine Earth Manor. What about passing guidance? It was just the perfect time to go and find a few future talented treasures. Li Qingchen's life and death duel was not a great challenge for Yang Chen. What he needed to think about at that moment was the great calamity of the devil cultivation, which would engulf the entire cultivation world in the future. Just avoiding the problem of the devil cultivation was simple, he only needed to warn them not to come in contact with the long Tai spirit supporting method. But Yang Chen was thinking even further. Afterwards, the Pure Yang Palace would also have to participate in the joint operation to annihilate the devils. How he could prevent disastrous losses at that time was Yang Chen's main concern. It appeared that getting rid of Lin Cheng first was perhaps the best option. Because of the long Tai spirit supporting method, this devil, Lin Cheng, had rushed to the Da Cheng stage, and only after sacrificing the lives of several tens of Yuning stage experts could he be killed in the end, but because of him every large sect had lost a great amount of their strength and had gone into seclusion for several decades to recover. Only after that could they begin to restore. Yang Chen would absolutely not allow the tragedy of the Pure Yang Palace, which had happened last time, to be repeated again, so he had to make some preparations in advance. Adding to that, there were large differences between this life and his past life, so he himself didn't know how big the effect of this great calamity would be. In his previous life, at the time of this great calamity of devil cultivation, Elder Hua Wanting of the Clear Sky sect was still entangled in the blood phantom vine, but currently, because of Yang Chen's intervention, she had successfully broken free from the blood phantom vine and had entered the Da Cheng stage. If Hua Wanting decided to undertake the task of eliminating Lin Cheng, Yang Chen couldn't guess what the outcome would be. This time everything was variable, but for Yang Chen, the best security would be to increase his own strength. Unfortunately, for the problem at hand, the foundation stage was indeed quite lacking. Even if he had been a Jidan stage expert in front of the devil Lin Cheng, he would be just like a piece of cooked meat, ready to be eaten. He really wouldn't be able to do anything. Even though there were several years before the great calamity, and even if Yang Chen knew about many heavenly materials, profound cultivation methods, within the short time of a few years he would still not be able to contend against Lin Cheng. If he wanted to have the strength to defend himself during this huge calamity over the devil cultivation, then he first had to rely on the sect's strength and preserve it to the greatest extent. Secondly, he needed to possess a magic weapon that could be used as a trump card at a critical moment. After his fight with Li Qingchen, Yang Chen immediately knew that he had to put refining his destined magic weapon as a priority. Earlier, because he had just reached the foundation stage and had been consolidating his realm, Yang Chen did not want to be distracted by refining a magic weapon, but now that his realm had already consolidated, he could begin his refining. For all cultivators, picking their destined magic weapon was a very important affair. Because the destined magic weapon was very closely linked with the life of the cultivator, if the magic weapon suffered heavy damage, then the cultivator was also seriously injured. But, since a destined magic weapon was linked to the master even more closely than other magic weapons, it would display at least 3 to 4 times more strength than an ordinary magic weapon. In fact, Yang Chen had long ago picked his destined magic weapon. The reason why he had been using the immortal beheading blade was precisely to treat it as his own destined magic weapon. The real body of the immortal beheading blade was the sword box refined by a Jidan stage senior. The sword box was not very outstanding by itself, but if a sufficient number of powerful sword spirits were added, then it could take a qualitative leap. Regarding the sword spirits, Yang Chen had already thought of a way to do it. He needed flying swords corresponding to the 10 attribute of Yin and Yang 5 phases secrets. If he could gather all of them, then he may be able to turn it into a magic weapon, which could make anyone in the heavenly court shudder. Collecting flying swords of the 10 attributes was not very easy, but Yang Chen already had obtained the ingredients for 2 types. One was the Penglai divine wood, the other was precisely the blood phantom vine. Coincidentally both of them were wood attributed. With Yang Chen's current strength of the foundation stage, it was basically impossible for him to refine the Penglai divine wood. With just the support of the geocentric flame inside of his body, it was impossible to even change the shape of the Penglai divine wood. If the blood phantom vine had been mature, then Yang Chen would have also been helpless, but the blood phantom vine Yang Chen had received had coincidentally only sucked the blood of a Dacheng stage expert in this realm and was at the infant stage, just enough to allow him to do what he was good at. Because of the characteristics of the blood phantom vine, it would create a second wood flying sword after being refined, which would have powerful blood-sucking characteristics and would moreover be able to mature after sucking the blood of someone powerful, then of the cultivators in the spiritual world and then the immortal world, only then would it genuinely be able to enter the mature stage. Every sword spirit could be entered independently, so what Yang Chen wanted to do at that moment was to use the blood phantom vine to create as a flying sword, which would be used as the first sword spirit and then intensifying the refining of the immortal beheading blade to become his destined flying sword. Naturally, tampering with the destined flying sword was a long process during which he could not be disturbed, so Yang Chen's first priority was to assume the role of Nine Earth Manor's merit-transferring disciple. When he returned to the Nine Earth Manor, the disciples there were not unfamiliar to Yang Chen. Not to mention anything else, just climbing to the peak of the heavenly stairs, in addition to the allocation of the luxurious second Fierce Yang Hall, there would be nearly no one who didn't know of Yang Chen. What's more, there was still his fame from refining the heaven-seizing pill, as well as, after recent vague rumors, the favor granted by Elder Hua wanting of the Clear Sky sect, which made it even more impossible for people to not know him. It was a very pleasant surprise for all outer disciples that Yang Chen, who was known to have already read all books in the hidden pavilion of the Nine Earth Manor, had become their merit-transferring disciple. Who would be more familiar with the things in the hidden pavilion than Yang Chen? As long as they could obtain the name and the exact position of the books they were looking for from Yang Chen, it would save them a lot of time. The facts went along with the expectations of the outer disciples. Yang Chen's arrival really did give the Nine Earth Manor a huge change of appearance. Previously, during Chu Heng's time, the instructors would not do their best effort to teach these disciples, while he would be mostly busy in his cultivation and would only provide very little time to these disciples. Chu Heng also had one more mortal weakness. He was a water-attributed cultivator and thus only had good knowledge about water-attributed cultivation methods. Regarding other cultivation methods, he wasn't very skilled in guiding disciples. Yang Chen was completely different, he was an expert who had cultivated the 5 phases of yin and yang secrets, and thus, regardless of whatever attribute it was, in front of Yang Chen, everyone could obtain terse and accurate guidance. Although he only said a few words, it made the disciple who was being guided have sudden insights and sometimes have an all-new understanding regarding their cultivation. You practice a water-attributed cultivation method in which being flexible is the most important. Only then you can show your effectiveness. When you have time, go to the hidden pavilion and look at the 3 jade slips in the 4th column, 6th row. It will be helpful for you. For the metal attribute, the most important thing is being acute. You must be able to conquer every obstacle. Grasp the essentials and you will be able to settle your current problem. On the first day Yang Chen returned, all of the outer disciples raised their problems. For every person, Yang Chen made them tell him their problem and afterwards, demonstrated his own cultivation method once and then picked the most suitable cultivation method for them. Yang Chen only used one day for several hundred disciples to give everyone accurate solutions. Those who had a strong perception broke through on the scene, which surprised all outer disciples, even to the extent that nobody wanted to leave and wished to hear the explanation so that maybe they could also comprehend something. Oh right, you. Your cultivation method is a little problematic. Spirit power cannot always rotate at this meridian. Just as everyone was about to depart, Yang Chen suddenly pointed towards a servant following after an outer disciple and said to him, "Settle this and you will be able to advance to the next layer." "Is Sir talking to me?" That one servant whom Yang Chen had pointed at had never expected such a good thing and was startled. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 142 Refining the Destined Flying Sword. Yes, you. Yang Chen nodded and smiled towards that servant. You already are at the 7th Kai layer, if you can advance a few more layers, you will definitely be able to become an inner disciple. Hearing these words, all of the servants who had followed after the outer disciples immediately became excited. But they still remembered their status and did not dare to cross their limits and merely looked at Yang Chen with a gaze full of hope. In the future, to any person in the Nine Earth Manor, including the people at the Ishu Manor, if anyone has a problem, they can raise it in front of me. Yang Chen sternly said. Every 2 months, I will set aside a day at both the Ishu Manor and the Nine Earth Manor. If you have anything you are not clear about, you can ask me. Bang. Yang Chen's words caused a sensation in the entire crowd. Wouldn't this mean that servants were also allowed to get pointers from him? This was unprecedented. None of the previous merit-transferring disciple had done this before. The number of servants in the Yishu Manor and Nine Earth Manor was several times higher than the number of outer disciples. Previously they hadn't gotten the opportunity, but now Yang Chen had surprisingly promised to provide guidance, which pleased everyone beyond measure. On the path of cultivation, to pick suitable people, all sects use a very cruel method. In the beginning, they just have to depend on their comprehension and luck, and if they are successful, then they become outer disciples, if they are unsuccessful, then they become servants. The same is the case for outer disciples. There was also nothing impartial and everything could be said to depend on karma. If they were lucky, then they could run into a good merit-transferring disciple and would be able to build their foundation successfully, but if they were not, then it couldn't be forced. The merit-transferring disciple also changed every few years, so these outer disciple just had to wait for the opportunity when a merit-transferring suitable for their cultivation would come. Yang Chen had too much bad luck and had by some coincidence run into Chu Heng from the beginning, who then made things difficult for him. The old previous merit-transferring disciple had been proficient in only one attribute and could not give proper guidance regarding other attributes. People like Yang Chen who were proficient in all 5 attributes had simply never come before. It could be said that this was the good karma of these outer disciples. With Yang Chen's promise, the many servants also got excited. With the guidance of the merit-transferring disciple, maybe they could once again hope to build their foundation. If you need some kind of elixir refined, then gather the ingredients, I will refine it for you. After making the promise of giving pointers to everyone, Yang Chen made another promise which made everyone happy. Who didn't know that Yang Chen was a pill concocting expert, moreover one who could already refine second-grade foundation stage pills. If they could gather the ingredients, Yang Chen would refine a second-grade foundation stage pill for them, so wouldn't they have a great chance for achieving the foundation stage at that time? The entire Nine Earth Manor and Yishu Manor were filled with excitement, as if everyone had obtained their desire of reaching the foundation stage. Even those people who had long ago given up their hopes on building their foundation had once again hope visible in their eyes. Everyone immediately remembered about Shang Yuanfeng and Wang Yong, who originally didn't have any hopes of reaching the foundation stage and had been sent to become the managers of the Yishu Manor, but currently they were living together with Yang Chen at the second Fierce Yang Hall. If somebody said that this didn't have any relation with Yang Chen, nobody would believe it. Suddenly a completely new atmosphere had appeared in the outer area of the Pure Yang Palace. Regardless of whether it was cultivation or anything else, everything was completely different from before. Many servants also began to ponder what should they ask when Yang Chen came next time. Moreover, the majority of outer disciple who had taken advice from Yang Chen began to cultivate from the beginning. Once again, as the day when Yang Chen would give pointers drew near, everyone was notified. This time Yang Chen's intention was to allow everyone to have a clear view of their cultivation, which would require a long time, moreover everyone was personally tested by Yang Chen. Who would be dissatisfied with this? Yang Chen personally inspecting everyone, such a great opportunity could only be found by luck, so who would oppose to it? Each and every one were excitedly waiting for the manager of the Nine Earth Manor to call them to their turn. Naturally, at that time, their servants were also waiting to get pointers. What was astonishing for everyone was that this time, apart from carefully inspecting their cultivation, Yang Chen also made them put their hands on a small stone in his hand and insert spirit power into it. Though nobody knew what he was doing, nobody questioned him. Everyone believed that Yang Chen was testing them for their cultivation of spirit power and therefore excitedly inserted their spirit power. The detailed guidance this time benefited all of them. Previous cultivation mistakes, their future cultivation direction, even some regrettable things which they had used, as long as they asked, Yang Chen answered all of them in detail and even demonstrated for them on the scene. His formidable performance made all disciples and servants be convinced in heart and soul. Naturally, among them there were some exceptions, but what they didn't expect was that, rather than guiding them, Yang Chen made them change their cultivation method entirely. Uncle Master, I have an earth-attributed spirit root, how can I cultivate a wood-attributed cultivation method? The very first one was an outer disciple who was at the 5th Kai layer. Hearing Yang Chen's explanation, he indeed didn't dare to believe what he was hearing. Right now, I cannot explain you, but I can make a promise to you. Yang Chen also didn't explain much to the disciple and used his status of being a merit-transferring disciple to demand this outer disciple to cultivate the other attributes cultivation method. I can guarantee that cultivating the wood-attributed cultivation method will be easier than your present cultivation. Moreover, when you reach the peak of the Kai layer, I personally will refine a third-grade foundation stage pill for you. Yang Chen could not tell him about the postnatal spirit root, at least right now he was unable to explain and could only forcefully make him accept and use benefits to goad him. Although the disciple was somewhat dubious, under the enticement of a third-grade foundation stage pill, he finally agreed. The disciples like him were only 14 among the 1,000 people of the Nine Earth Manor and Yishu Manor. For most people, the postnatal spirit root was the same as the innate spirit root. Moreover, many postnatal spirit roots were not as outstanding as the innate spirit root. So this ratio was quite normal. After 2 months, Yang Chen had finally given pointers to all disciples. Yang Chen spared no pains in giving pointers to any disciple or servant, at least for the next half year, as long as these people cultivated according to his instructions, there would not be any major problems. This also provided enough time to Yang Chen to take care of his own matters. First, Yang Chen wanted to refine his destined flying sword. There was a very large difference in refining the destined flying sword and refining an ordinary flying sword. The destined flying sword had to enter the spirit sea and slowly fuse with his primordial spirit until they were completely assimilated. Common methods of refining a flying sword could increase the grade of the destined flying sword, but it would be unable to achieve that kind of interlink. The immortal beheading blade, whose real identity was the sword box, entered his spirit sea after taking a full 2 months. Once it entered the spirit sea, Yang Chen could immediately see the enormous immortal beheading blade. These circumstances were similar to when Yang Chen had refined the wood-attributed third-grade foundation stage pill, but this time, it was not only the shape but the main part of the immortal beheading blade which had entered the spirit sea. The large immortal beheading blade allowed Yang Chen to see all flaws and defects in the sword box, but unfortunately, with his current skill, Yang Chen would not be able to improve upon the sword box refined by a peak Jidan expert, so he could only record these flaws and afterwards look for the right ingredients so that it could be refined as soon as possible. To temper the destined flying sword, Yang Chen inevitably chose the blood river. This was Yang Chen's pride and his sharpest weapon. If the flying sword could bring that killing intent along with it, then almost nobody would be his enemy. Without hesitating much, Yang Chen threw the immortal beheading blade into the river. Tempering the body of the destined flying sword required the process to be conducted continuously. The beginning period requires the most patience. Only if the flying sword united with his body and soul would he be able to use the flying sword as his arms and legs. If he just had to place a spiritual awareness imprint or perhaps pass it through a few layers of ordinary refining, such as the Heavenly Star's treasure refining secrets or the Earth Fiend sacrificial formation secrets, he could at most make the flying sword recognize him as master, but then he wouldn't be able to form such a close connection with the flying sword. Usually people only very rarely refined and tempered their destined flying sword at the foundation or the Jidan stage. Firstly, their cultivation was shallow, and secondly, when they were at this realm, they usually didn't have any good magic weapon which could be refined as their destined flying sword, which had to be cultivated and used throughout their life. Everyone waits until they were at the wielding stage and then, with the utmost care, they would refine a high-grade magic weapon which could be nurtured and tempered as their destined flying sword. But before that, there was a method of compromise between genuine destined weapons and common magic weapons. Those were quasi-destined magic weapons. Their might was more powerful than ordinary flying swords, but they were still inferior to a genuine destined magic weapon. Because of this compromise, the tempering and refining did not require wasting a large amount of energy, and the magic weapon was naturally not that high grade. Moreover, the connection with the spiritual awareness was also not as strong as a genuine destined magic weapon. But even if it was a quasi-destined magic weapon, when it received serious damage, it would lead to its master's spiritual awareness being gravely injured. Previously, all of the people Yang Chen had beheaded, like Xu Heng and Li Qingchen, all used this kind of destined magic weapon, the quasi-destined magic weapon. Yang Chen did not wish in the least to waste his energy at this kind of extravagant weapon. Even if Yang Chen crossed the Jidan stage from the foundation stage and then to the wielding stage without any hitch, it would nonetheless require at least several hundred years. Moreover, several hundred years was already sufficient for Yang Chen to raise the grade of his destined flying sword by a few notches. There wasn't anyone who wouldn't want to upgrade their destined magic weapon, naturally Yang Chen was the same. The sword box itself was a magic weapon which could be upgraded. If high-grade sword souls were also inserted into it, then even Yang Chen would be unable to imagine its formidable power. Naturally Yang Chen wanted to be extremely careful with such important things. Although his cultivation was not at the wielding stage, the fusion of a genuine destined magic weapon with the master's body was mostly dependent on spiritual awareness. For the most basic tempering, Yang Chen need to soak the sword box in the blood river within his spiritual awareness for 10 years. Only then would the initial step be completed. This also meant that, for these 10 years, the blood river in Yang Chen's spiritual awareness could not be used to attack, except when enemies like Mo Qian took the initiative to enter Yang Chen's spirit sea. The previous attack of Mo Qian and her disciples made Yang Chen realize that, after his rebirth, he had been very careless about being alert. He had always thought that he would certainly have access to the blood river no matter what, and thus didn't put anyone in his eyes. This was certainly a very dangerous attitude. Not just Mo Qian, when he had been attacked by Guan Yuing, if Guan Yuing didn't only have thoughts of reprimanding him at that time and instead wanted to kill him, maybe Yang Chen would have already been dead. So where would he get the chance to restrict Guan Yuing? He wanted to be able to completely rely on himself for vigilance, so he would first have to thoroughly take away all of his defenses and then allow himself to form an instinctual response, which was another matter. Yang Chen decided to practice this custom when facing low-level enemies from then on, so that, when he faced an even more powerful person after ascending, he would not regret that at the last moment. While having thrown away all of his defenses was just the perfect time to refine the destined magic weapon. This kind of opportunity had one move but two gains, so how could Yang Chen miss it? At the time of losing all of his defenses, he also needed a new method to protect his life. Fortunately, the Blood Phantom Vine provided the perfect way. The formidable demonic vine which had trapped Elder Hua Wanting for over 100 years should at least be able to give Yang Chen an opportunity to escape. As long as Yang Chen was able to survive, then he would certainly have the opportunity to flee, at least in front of a Yuning stage expert. As for the attack of even higher stage experts, if a Dacheng stage expert wanted to kill Yang Chen, then even the blood river did not have any use. It would be impossible for Yang Chen to keep the blood river prepared to erupt at all times, and who knew when a strike from such a powerful person could annihilate Yang Chen. Yang Chen was full of expectations. The destined flying sword produced by combining the spiritual awareness he cultivated with the three purity secrets and the killing intent of the Shantai stage, how powerful would it be? Naturally, since he possessed a spirit object like the Blood Phantom Vine, Yang Chen absolutely did not want to waste it, and the time he was the merit-transferring disciple was just perfect for him to make a second wood-attributed flying sword's embryo by refining the master root and a small root of the Blood Phantom Vine. The sword produced from this sword embryo would be one of the sword souls of the immortal beheading blade. The Blood Phantom Vine's powerful blood-sucking characteristic would be the most power feature of this flying sword and also the one which people would be most afraid of. After this flying sword formed, the immortal beheading sword would certainly have the ability to intimidate even Yuning and Dacheng stage experts. If it was able to suck the blood of an earth immortal after ascending to the spiritual world, the flying sword would certainly mature into a weapon which even immortals would dread. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 143 Second Wood Spirit Power. When Yang Chen had previously planted the Penglai divine wood in the medicine garden, huge changes had occurred in the space. However, after the Blood Phantom Vine had been planted, virtually no changes had developed. This baffled Yang Chen. But after spending some time on it, he understood the reason. The majority of herbs originally growing in the medicine garden were of the second wood attribute. If the Blood Phantom Vine, a spirit object which also had the second wood, was added, then it would not trigger any major changes. But after acquiring the Blood Phantom Vine, the medicine garden was as secure as Mount Tai, even without the defensive spell of the dome. Without a method to deal with the Blood Phantom Vine, any intruder entering the medicine garden wouldn't come out unscathed. Growing the Blood Phantom Vine was just like growing a natural bodyguard. Even Yang Chen had to make extensive preparations in order to enter the medicine garden to make sure wasn't injured by the Blood Phantom Vine. If it wasn't for Yang Chen using special methods to trap it and the layers of Qianqin pouches surrounding it, the Blood Phantom Vine would probably have broken out of the medicine garden and caused a massacre within Puryang Palace. Yang Chen's only regret was that the grade of the Blood Phantom Vine was not easy to increase. It could not be done without the blood of experts. Fortunately, this Blood Phantom Vine of his had already sucked the blood of a Dacheng stage expert for about 100 years. Although it still hadn't matured yet, the energy it had obtained was barely enough for it to pass through its vulnerable period and become capable of defending itself in this realm. But if he wanted to increase the grade of this Blood Phantom Vine again, then he had to have it suck the blood of an even higher leveled expert than Elder Hua Wanting. That meant that he required a Dacheng stage expert's blood. Thus, Yang Chen currently didn't have any extravagant hopes for increasing the grade of this Blood Phantom Vine. After carefully entering the medicine garden, Yang Chen went to where the Blood Phantom Vine was planted and began to prepare for the refining of the Blood Phantom Vine. This refining was not to turn the Blood Phantom Vine into a flying sword, but rather to mark Yang Chen's spiritual awareness imprint on the Blood Phantom Vine. This would allow the Blood Phantom Vine to accept Yang Chen as its master, no longer attacking him and listening to his orders from then on. The process of refining had to be carried out very carefully even after Yang Chen made sufficient preparations. The blood phantom vine itself was highly toxic, so Yang Chen controlled the medicine garden to seal this region for the time being so that the blood phantom vine didn't affect the other plants growing in the medicine garden. He applied herbs all over his body and only then did he carefully approach it. If he wanted to refine the blood phantom vine, he had to come in contact with it. Under normal circumstances, with Yang Chen's strength of the initial foundation stage, as long as he came in contact with it, he would immediately be sucked dry by the blood phantom vine. So he had no other choice than to use the methods he had learned in his previous life regarding dealing with the blood phantom vine. He applied several layers of herbs which could restrict the blood phantom vine and applied them to his hand, forming a glove. Only then did he dare to touch it. Because of the herbs used by Yang Chen to restrict it, the blood phantom vine appeared completely suppressed. This also made Yang Chen's work very easy. His spiritual awareness rushed into the blood phantom vine via one of the vines. Suddenly, many sinister shadows of the blood phantom vine appeared in Yang Chen's spirit sea. Resembling a viper in coloration, the vine started wreaking havoc in Yang Chen's spirit sea. Unfortunately, Yang Chen's spirit sea, even apart from the blood river, possessed Penglai divine wood, real sun fire and the geocentric flame. Complementing these were layers of fifth earth soil and bridge, formed by the cyan ox horns. For the blood phantom vine, any attempt to damage them was completely futile. Regardless of how berserk the vines were, as long as they came into contact with any of these things, they were immediately repelled. Very quickly, the blood-colored vine discovered that no matter how it twisted along the enormous trees of Penglai divine wood, it was unable to harm them. Furthermore, running into either the real sun fire and the geocentric flame just repeatedly inflicted harm. The only one capable of receiving it was apparently the layer of fifth earth soil. The fifth earth soil was the region which wood-attributed plants were most fond of. The blood phantom vine noticed this very quickly and stuck its root into the fifth earth soil and then began attacking the bridge formed by the enormous ox horns. All along, Yang Chen was controlling and observing everything. The blood phantom vine had tangled with the two horns but very quickly discovered that the two horns didn't have any blood for it to suck. Finally, devoid of options, the blood phantom vine gathered all of its vines and focused on the blood river. The blood river was the thing which was closest to blood, but also the thing the blood phantom vine was instinctively the most scared of. In the end, unwilling to lose, the blood phantom vine inserted a small vine into the blood river to explore. The instant the blood phantom vine's image came in contact with the blood river, it suddenly started to wither and then, violently shaking, started to slowly disintegrate. The vine which entered the blood river couldn't be pulled out. The violent shuddering continued for some time until Yang Chen suddenly gave the order to stop through a strong thought. With that one thought, the blood river immediately released to the vine and the image of the blood phantom vine immediately regained its form and turned into a round ball, not daring to move anymore. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness directly probed that round image and soon started slowly moving it. Moving according to Yang Chen's will, the blood phantom vine also began to slowly weave around the Penglai divine wood. Compatible yin and yang was the only correct path. After this final step, Yang Chen opened his eyes. The blood phantom vine before his eyes was mysteriously giving off a sensation of intimacy. Yang Chen experimented with a quick mental order and a vine immediately stretched out and coiled around at Yang Chen's side to form a circle. From start to end, it hadn't once come in contact with Yang Chen. Until now, Yang Chen had only thought of subduing the blood phantom vine by force. Taking a rough count of the time, everything that happened in his spirit sea seemed to have taken only around an incense stick of time, but in the outside world he had spent almost a whole 2 months. The timing of his plan was just perfect, he had decided to provide guidance again in exactly 2 months. Last time, Yang Chen had provided sufficient guidance and had also walked through the 9 Earth Manor and Yishu Manor once, therefore there weren't many people who needed guidance. This time, after Yang Chen had given pointers to the disciples once, he had a lot of free time again. Generally speaking, Yang Chen was the most relaxed one among all merit-transferring disciples. Since he had provided ample and detailed guidance before, those disciples would not face a major problem for at least half a year or more. As such, Yang Chen seemed to be the most idle merit-transferring disciple. But then again, this was the ideal result which Yang Chen had hoped for. Despite giving guidance, he could not allow his cultivation to drop, so the current state was the optimal situation for him. After subduing the blood phantom vine, Yang Chen was not very anxious about refining the blood phantom vine into a sword embryo. Instead he began to increase the grade of his second wood attribute for which he had received from the Clear Sky sect. The blood phantom vine was the purest kind of second wood plant, almost comparable to the Penglai divine wood of the first wood attribute. If this had not been the case, Yang Chen would not have racked his brains over how to make use of the Blood Phantom Vine as his second wood flying sword. The first wood spirit power had already successfully assimilated the Penglai divine wood spirit power, so naturally Yang Chen wanted to turn his second wood spirit power into Blood Phantom Vine spirit power. Like this, controlling his Blood Phantom Vine flying sword in the future would be made even more familiar and easier. This kind of thing, Yang Chen had already done it once. Last time, he had used the Penglai divine woods master root and had successfully blended it into a foundation stage pill. Naturally, this time, Yang Chen had picked the same method. But the experience of making the third grade foundation stage pill, Yang Chen was much more relaxed. However, there was only one Blood Phantom Vine, which could not be compared to the amount of Penglai divine wood branches, so Yang Chen could use only the vine leaves as herbs. This time, Yang Chen only used 1 month to refine the foundation stage pill. After all, Yang Chen had long ago reached the foundation stage, he merely needed to change his spirit power. Furthermore, refining it once was sufficient as there was no need for a high-quality third-grade pill. After building one's foundation, many things become quite simple. Those matters which required a long time before reaching the foundation stage could be completed in a very short time afterwards. Taking one second wood foundation stage pill, the second wood spirit power in Yang Chen's body began to transform for the first time. From ordinary second wood spirit power, it had changed to very high-grade Blood Phantom Vine spirit power. This process proceeded slowly and steadily, since Yang Chen already had experienced transforming his first wood spirit power and fifth earth yuan kai, he knew that after subduing the main part of the Blood Phantom Vine, there wouldn't be any more problems. In less than 10 days, Yang Chen had already transformed the second wood spirit power in his body into the Blood Phantom Vine spirit power. As soon the second wood spirit power had transformed, the shadowy image of the Blood Phantom Vine in his spirit sea began to solidify. With a rumbling sound, Yang Chen's spirit sea again began to expand. This time, the expansion was not very large, only widening by approximately 50% compared to before, but Yang Chen's spirit sea had already reached an area with a radius of 100 mu. Since yin and yang were now in balance, the Penglai divine wood grew vigorously and the large pillar supporting the sky had grown even higher. Even the sky of the spirit sea had become higher. His spiritual awareness, which had already been at the Jidan stage, had apparently advanced by leaps and bounds after this transformation and broken through all barriers to enter the initial Yuning stage. This was an amazing surprise and completely outside of Yang Chen's expectations. He had never thought that, someday, when he was only at the foundation stage, he would have spiritual awareness comparable to an initial Yuning stage expert. The might of the three purities secret made Yang Chen see greatest supreme elder in a completely new light. With his spiritual awareness reaching the Yuning stage, Yang Chen was as if he had entered a brand new realm. Yang Chen had also entered that realm in his previous life, but that time it wasn't so distinct. At least, the complexity of his spirit sea in his previous life when he was a Great Principle Golden Immortal could not be compared with the current circumstances. After the transformation this time, 2/3 of his second wood spirit power had been consumed. Even though Yang Chen had completely consumed 2 profound yang fruits and had then used their spirit power to replenish his own, only 1/3 remained. However, the quality had greatly increased. Everything was going according to Yang Chen's plan and the merit transferring disciple's life was calm and orderly. Giving pointers to outer disciples did not generate even the smallest amount of pressure on Yang Chen and also didn't delay his cultivation either. After the second wood spirit power had been transformed, Yang Chen once again gave pointers to outer disciples and then went to welcome 2 special guests. His guests who had come to look for Yang Chen were 2 old friends from the recently established Hall of Eccentrics. Shikui and Shesha had gone to some unknown place following the palace master and had only appeared in front of him half a year after Yang Chen had returned to the Pure Yang Palace. Against our expectations, you are quite carefree. Shikui and Shesha had smiles spread across their faces, they were seemingly very satisfied with the way things were going. These 2 master ancestors, how come you have time to come over? Yang Chen greeted them with a face full of smiles. Since both of them were at the Yuning stage, the palace master had directly made them elders. Since they were of the same generation as the palace master and Wang Yong, Yang Chen could only call them master ancestors. What kind of bullshit is this? Don't give us that. Hearing that Yang Chen had addressed them like this, the faces of the 2 immediately dropped. In all likelihood, one of the most complicated things inside the sect were these kinds of complicated hierarchical relationships, which made these 2 carefree people very uncomfortable. After venting their gloominess, the 2 then spoke about their intentions. During this time, they had been under the guidance of the palace master of the Pure Yang Palace, looking at something related to tool refining. Although they had learned a lot, all of the things the Pure Yang Palace collected were for the cultivation of cultivators, not for demon beasts, so many things were still not clear to them. So after much thought, they decided to look for Yang Chen. Coincidentally, these two wanted to refine their destined flying swords. Generally speaking, all demon beasts could refine a part of their body and treat it as their destined flying sword. Shikui and Xie were no exceptions. Shikui had picked 4 of his poisonous fangs, while Xie had picked his scorpion tail. The demon beasts had instinctively used the strongest parts of their bodies as their destined magic weapon, but this kind of method was very primitive. After looking at the tool refining methods of cultivators, Shikui and Xie had also begun to think about their destined magic weapons and didn't want them to be crude. So these two instinctively thought of Yang Chen. Yang Chen had countless ideas which normal people could not understand. Shikui and Xie kept their own counsel, and after finding the time, they came to Yang Chen to discuss these matters. Yang Chen was completely willing to discuss these things with the two. After all, they were an important part of the Pure Yang Palace's fighting strength. The stronger the Pure Yang Palace was, the better it was for Yang Chen. That's why he intentionally began to use some things he knew to guide them. The two Yuaning stage beasts stayed at 9 Earth Manor, discussing matters related to tool refining. Many of the directions of thought Yang Chen pointed out were things which Shikui and Xie had never thought about. In this sort of intense discussion, these two people immediately had flashes of insight, and the concepts of refining tools started to become clearer and clearer by the day. One day, when they were fully embroiled in discussions, Shangyu and Feng suddenly rushed into the 9 Earth Manor. Yang Chen, just recently Master Ancestor Wang Yong suddenly departed, leaving behind a letter and ordering me to notify you. Shang Yuan anxiously said upon seeing Yang Chen. He said that your master had been attacked and has sustained some injuries, so he had rushed ahead to rescue her. As soon as these words left Shang Yuan Feng's mouth, he immediately sensed a wave of coldness and his whole body started shivering. Notes. 1 1/15 of a hectare. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 144 Preparation before the slaughter. Not only Shangyu and Feng, but Shikui and Xie also felt a coldness as if they had been suddenly transported to the world of ice and snow, where people couldn't stop shivering. Everyone suddenly discovered that the source of the cold air was Yang Chen. But all three of them very quickly understood that this was not any cold air, but killing intent. The frightening killing intent surprisingly made all three of them sense a chill in their bodies. Shikui and Xie were still better, but Shangyu and Feng's jaw began to clatter. Xie discovered that there was something wrong with the situation and hastily yelled. "What are you doing? It was not Shangyuan who attacked your master." The killing intent diffused in the air, but coldness still spread across Yang Chen's entire face. He rushed to Shangyu and Feng and asked. "I am sorry, senior disciple Shangyuan. I lost my self-control there. Do you know who did it?" Shangyu and Feng required a moment to recover from the shock. That one act just a moment ago had scared him half to death. It was as if he was facing a death god. Fortunately, Yang Chen had stopped it in time, otherwise Shangyu and Feng would have been embarrassed in front of everyone. If these people knew that Yang Chen's blood river was still being used to soak the immortal beheading blade and that the killing intent he had released was only 1/100th of its full potential, their thoughts could be imagined. It is currently unknown. Shangyu and Feng shook his head and continued his answer with some lingering fears. Master Ancestor had walked away quite hastily, without saying much, he merely rushed me to inform you. As he said that, as if he had remembered something, Shangyu and Feng fished out a compass. This is something the Master Ancestor left for you, saying that this would be able to point to Master Ancestor's position. Yang Chen held the compass and carefully observed it for some time, then he immediately realized that this was a compass which searched for a certain object on Wang Yong's body, probably the Qianqin pouch. Then he immediately became clear-headed. Wang Yong didn't know who attacked Gao Yu, but Gao Yu definitely had a magic tool on her body, which she would have used in a moment of crisis to immediately inform Wang Yong. This was a high-grade tool used for warning in extreme crises, which could only be refined by Yuaning stage experts. But Yang Chen was still exceptionally worried. Issuing an alert over being seriously hurt, she had made it clear that she had suffered a powerful attack. Her position was still unknown. If Wang Yong was too late, then there would certainly be grave consequences, so Wang Yong had hastily departed, most likely because of the same reason. Thinking this, Yang Chen did not stay anymore and immediately stood up, wanting to rush out. Suddenly he thought of something and stopped, then turning around he asked. "Would you two seniors like to make a trip with me?" Shikui asked, opening his eye. "To do what?" "Kill people." Yang Chen said to the two people without hiding his killing intent in the least. Younger disciple Yang. Shangyu and Feng shouted with great alarm. Yang Chen wanted to kill openly, this was exactly what he expected, but hoped not to happen. Most of all, he was also taking Shikui and Xia, the two Yuning stage experts of Eccentric Hall. If something went wrong, there would be a lot of trouble for the Puryang Palace. Senior disciple Shangyuan, there is no use stopping me. Once Shangyuan Feng opened his mouth, Yang Chen knew exactly what he wanted to say. Those who have dared to harm my master, even the heavens cannot save them. Why else do you think the great master asked you to inform me? Shangyuan Feng was startled for a few moments and then immediately turned speechless. Wang Yong had made these plans with such an intention, otherwise, a Yuning stage expert like him setting out was already excessive, so what was the need to inform Yang Chen? Senior disciple, help me by taking over as the merit transferring disciple here for a few months, I will go and quickly return. Yang Chen extended his hand and pulled Shangyuan Feng to his seat and then immediately turned around and left with Shikui and Xia. It had been 2 years since they had entered Puryang Palace, but following with the rules had been quite depressing for them. When they were demon beasts, they were free and careless, so long as the enemy's strength didn't surpass them, they would immediately kill them when they wanted. After being restrained for 2 years, once Yang Chen invited them to kill people, they immediately followed him without saying anything more. Younger disciple Yang, be careful. Shangyuan Feng knew that there was no way to stop Yang Chen, so he could only warn him to be careful. Yang Chen did not even turn his head and directly waved his hand behind himself and sped off. His master was seriously injured and had still not been found by anyone. Yang Chen took out his flying shuttle and started moving together with Shikui and Xia. The flying shuttle along with 2 brilliant rays in the sky disappeared from the Nine Earth Manor in a flash. Holding the compass, Yang Chen began adjusting the directions. During these few months, he had been staying at the Nine Earth Manor and did not know where Gao Yu was collecting materials. However now, with Wang Yong's compass, he discovered with surprise that Gao Yu's was actually in the direction of the Nanhuang Great Mountain. Initially he had believed that Gao Yu had simply gone to the city to purchase ingredients, but now that he had discovered that Gao Yu had possibly gone to the Nanhuang Great Mountain, Yang Chen realized that the matter was not so simple. The Great Mountain penetrating deeply into Nanhuang was far away from where ordinary people lived. Even the most savage types of people could only establish their footing with great difficulty. There were demon beasts everywhere in the Great Mountain. Aside from cultivators, nobody would dare to set foot in there. As it happened, the natural resources in this region were extremely extravagant because it was a deserted region, countless heavenly materials could be found there. Similarly, the underground also had extremely enriched mineral resources. A lot of high-grade tool refining materials usually came from this Great Mountain. In all likelihood, Gao Yu wanted to find some good materials, that's why she had come there. There were many demon beasts and cultivators there. Not just of upright sex, but also of the devil sex. Generally speaking, there simply weren't any rules in the Nanhuang Great Mountain. Only strength ruled there. The countless battles happening among cultivators, among demons and among magicians were completely beyond reason. Everything that happens there was not under the influence of any sect, everyone did what they wanted without the slightest scruple. It was also a dangerous place, where cultivators could temper themselves at the edge of life. Yang Chen was extremely worried, he even felt some regret. How could he only think of enjoying the warmth of the Mingguang sword again, but neglected Gao Yu, who had to face these grave dangers. He could not help but urge his flying shuttle to move at its fastest speed, moving almost as fast as lightning to catch up to Wang Yong. In his previous life, Gao Yu did not spend so much effort to refine the Mingguang sword, so it could be assumed that Yang Chen's arrival and his deeds had changed many things in this world. Yang Chen was constantly praying in his heart. Master, you cannot have met with any mishaps. If you are seriously injured, that is still alright, as long as there is still an opportunity for you to live, this Yang Chen will immediately grab it and bring you back from the edge of death. The more anxious he became, the calmer Yang Chen started to look. The greater mountains were unlike the Immortal Falling Well. The Immortal Falling Well still had Elder Wu to keep watch, and after Elder Wu left, some other elder would be assigned. But the greater mountains were completely unlike that. The one with the bigger fist was the law. If he wanted to take revenge for Gao Yu injuries, then there was no other way than to be even fiercer than the others. Even though the speed of Yang Chen's flying shuttle was very fast, it would still take him at least 1 month from the Puryang Palace to the greater mountains. Wang Yong certainly had some good magic weapon, and he had been ahead of Yang Chen all the time from the beginning. But that also gave Yang Chen some relief. The higher Wang Yong's speed was, the larger was the possibility of him providing support to Gao Yu. Currently Yang Chen was hoping that Gao Yu only sustained injuries and had not been killed. Otherwise, even if it would ruin the immortal beheading blade, Yang Chen would massacre the entire greater mountain. While Shikui and Xia were flying on their strange flying swords, Yang Chen suddenly thought that it was a good decision to bring these two Yuning stage demon beasts with him after all. who knew what kind of difficulties they would have to face, and Yang Chen did not want to be done in while taking revenge. He could already command the Blood Phantom Vine, so frankly speaking, he could even resist a Yuning stage experts, but Yang Chen did not mind a few more helpers. Since the blood river in his spirit sea couldn't be used, Yang Chen found that he could only use Mo Qian and her disciples, who were sitting within the dome of the medicine garden, after much thinking. 6 people, 1 at the middle Yuning stage and 5 at the middle Jidan stage, well the strength of the 5 disciples was equal. Initially, when they were at the Clear Sky sect, they had a very ferocious character, but unfortunately they had all turned into vegetables. Despite turning into vegetables and losing the perception of their surroundings, some deep-rooted memories still remained, and they had also retained their cultivation instinct. During the time Yang Chen had ignored them, these 6 people were motionlessly sitting in the main hall of the medicine garden, silently cultivating their primary cultivation method. This was caused by a minor hypnosis within the soul-stunning technique which Yang Chen used, which left only one thought in their mind. Before Yang Chen summons them, they should continue to cultivate. But now Yang Chen had to draw support from their strength. Since they had completely lost their consciousness other than killing them, Yang Chen could only convert them into puppets. But Yang Chen wished to make them different from ordinary puppets. As far as he knew, the only defect they had was the loss of consciousness, other than that they should remain as they were before, just like other cultivators. This also implied that they would turn into even higher grade puppets than normal puppets. Perhaps calling them loyal slaves was more suitable. The trick Yang Chen used did not erase everything from their mind, but changed them so that they could only listen to Yang Chen's orders instead. In their hearts, there would not be anything besides Yang Chen's orders. They wouldn't have any apprehensions, fear and no ability to think about the problems at hand. They would only be slaves who would work according to Yang Chen's orders. Frankly speaking, the results of their cultivation during this time were far better than cultivation done by 6 normal people in the same time. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that their hearts were without greed was something which usual cultivators could not achieve easily. These 6 people did not have think about anything such as a heart's devil during their cultivation, let alone think about things like attacking the boundary of the next realm. They were wholeheartedly devoted to cultivation, which made it much more smooth. What Yang Chen wanted to do with them was to turn them into his faithful slave puppets. This required a special trick, but simultaneously also required very formidable spiritual awareness. Although Mo Qian was under Yang Chen's hypnosis, she was still a middle Yuning stage expert. Yang Chen's current level of spiritual awareness was still not high enough to make her follow his orders to the point. Mo Qian's 5 disciples on the other hand were all at the mid-Jidan stage, and Yang Chen's spiritual awareness, which was currently at the initial Yuning stage, was sufficient to control these 5. For this kind of control, Yang Chen had to plant a special spiritual awareness imprint. This could only be done by a person like Yang Chen, who had exceptionally formidable spiritual awareness. The 5 disciples as well as Mo Qian were all metal attributed, so cultivating in the dome of Medicine Garden was most suitable for them. And with the Medicine Garden's dome, when Yang Chen used his trick, it would not allow Shikui and Xia to see anything they shouldn't see. Because he didn't need to control the entire body of the target, only the spiritual awareness, the person would still retain the original personality, but these 5 people had lost their minds long ago, so it was even easier. While on the road, Yang Chen didn't enter the main hall of the dome, instead, using his hand to hold the lid of the bottle, he had already successfully established thorough control over the 5 within less than 20 days. Although Shikui and Xu Sha were traveling together with him, they only thought that this was Yang Chen's way of refining the lid and nothing more. They didn't have the slightest idea what was going on inside. 5 metal attributed middle Jidan stage experts with equal cultivation. This was perfectly suitable for a spell formation within Yang Chen's mind. The 5-direction profound female spell. The 5 people forming the spell would take 5 different positions. The offensive strength was far better than 5 people just cooperating. But this formation of 5 women was only a last resort for Yang Chen. Since he had never gotten the opportunity to change their appearances after trapping the 5 women, if they appeared in public then maybe they would catch the eye of someone they knew, so unless he had to, Yang Chen would not use them, like he did not use the blood river unless absolutely necessary. During the following days, Yang Chen and the 2 demon beasts hastened on their journey. While Yang Chen was completely calm on one side, Shikui and Xia had quite a fierce expression, as if they wanted to kill people without any regard. Naturally they could sense the tempest within Yang Chen's calmness. They feared that if the news was not good, Yang Chen would go on a massacre. They did not know why, but they were still somewhat fearful against Yang Chen. This was just their instinct as demon beasts and did not have any relation with their cultivation, so they did not know the reason. Suddenly it seemed as if Wang Yong's figure had stopped moving. With great relief, Yang Chen quickly controlled his flying sword to go towards that region. From the beginning Yang Chen was only a day behind, so now he only ran half a day when the pointer of the compass suddenly started shivering, indicating that Wang Yong was in the vicinity. Shua. The flying shuttle was immediately withdrawn by Yang Chen, and the figures of 3 people appeared in the sky standing on air. After being bored for 1 month, Shi Kui and Xie Sha, who had already been restraining themselves, began to move their hands and feet around. Yang Chen's spiritual awareness began to extend crazily in all 4 directions to sense the circumstances in his surroundings. Soon after that, his figure suddenly shuddered, discovering the position of Wang Yong. And together with Wang Yong was the figure of someone whom he was extremely familiar with. Gao Yu. At that moment Gao Yu was lying in Wang Yong's arm, with her hands and legs softly hanging down. If it were not for her rough breathing, Yang Chen would have thought she was already dead. Sensing this, Yang Chen finally took a long sigh. His master was alive, then everything was good. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 145 Great Master may not be ideal. Huh? Wang Yong, who had just found Gao Yu, was surprised to discover Yang Chen just after inspecting the condition of Gao Yu's injuries. He had originally thought that he would meet Yang Chen a few days later, but he hadn't expected that Yang Chen would come this quickly. But Yang Chen had always exceeded his expectations, so this did not count for much. How's master's condition? Yang Chen sprinted to Wang Yong's side and anxiously looked at Gao Yu, who was within Wang Yong's hands. Gao Yu's hands and feet were drooping on the side at this moment, and her complexion was deathly pale, there was almost no liveliness in her face. She was seriously injured, so I had her eat some life-saving medicine to stabilize her condition. Wang Yong was skillful in refining tools, but he was not very proficient with pills, so he was at a loss when faced with Gao Yu's injuries. Then give her this one to eat. Without much thinking, Yang Chen immediately fished out a pill and was going to put it in Gao Yu's mouth, but Gao Yu had already become unconscious at that moment, so how could she know that she was supposed to swallow the pill? What is this? The pill looked slightly familiar to Wang Yong, but he couldn't recall what it actually was and couldn't help asking. He was not worried that Yang Chen would cause harm to Gao Yu, but he feared that the pill would have no effect. It's a Lingzi Jiakuro pill. Yang Chen's reply made Wang Yong overjoyed. The Lingzhi Jiakuro pill was one of the top-grade healing pills. It uses 1,000-year matured Lingzi and 10,000 Jiakuro as the main ingredients and could heal all injuries for cultivators at the Yuaning or lower stages. But at that moment Gao Yu was still unconscious, so there was no way to feed her the pill. Yang Chen anxiously looked everywhere, but aside from Wang Yong, Shi Kui and Xie Sha, there was no other person to help. After much thinking, Yang Chen clenched his teeth, sucked the pill into his own mouth, and without caring for the relation between master and disciple, transferred the pill from mouth to mouth while supporting Gao Yu's head with his hand. Within Yang Chen's mouth, the pill had already turned into fluids. Yang Chen slowly pushed it into Gao Yu's mouth and soon afterwards started softly massaging her throat and exerted some more force through her mouth so that the fluids would start to flow down Gao Yu's throat and enter her stomach. Wang Yong was silently watching them from the side but didn't say anything. Right now saving her life was important, if necessary they had to do away with convoluted formalities. Even if this was somewhat overstepping the boundaries, but other than this they had no way. Furthermore, among the people present, Yang Chen was the most suitable one, since Wang Yong, Shi Kui and Xie Sha couldn't help in this kind of matter. Moreover, not to mention other factors, Yang Chen would not allow it. The pill was definitely effective. After entering Gao Yu's stomach, it immediately turned into a warm current and began to heal her injuries. Gao Yu's complexion also seemed much more rosy. Who did it? Looking at the pill's effect, Yang Chen relaxed and at the same time, immediately began to inquire about Gao Yu's circumstances. Confronting his great master, Wang Yong, Yang Chen couldn't be too aggressive, so he calmly asked him. I don't know. Wang Yong shook his head, within his eyes there was the same anger. When I came, little Yu was lying inside that cave, but she had many injuries over her body, so we can conclude that many people attacked her. The most serious one was the wound on the back. The enemy most likely launched a sneak attack on her. Hearing Wang Yong's words, Yang Chen also began to inspect her carefully. As soon as he swept her with his spiritual awareness once, he immediately grew even angrier. On Gao Yu's body, there were at least 8 places with serious injuries. The arms and leg, which were shattered into small pieces, had already been fixed by Wang Yong, but all the other injuries were almost fatal. Clearly the enemy wished to kill her and didn't have the slightest intention of leaving her alive. If Gao Yu did not have the high-quality mature ginseng which Yang Chen had given her, or she hadn't used it in time, then maybe she would have already been dead. Even then, the injuries on her body were definitely fatal. If Wang Yong and Yang Chen had been delayed by a day or two, then maybe the situation would have already been beyond saving. Previously Chu Heng had just abused her a little in passing, and Yang Chen could not hold his anger, but now someone had surprisingly dared to injure Gao Yu to this degree. If this could be tolerated, then what couldn't? What Yang Chen could not accept the most was that Gao Yu was refining a flying sword for Yang Chen and had come to the greater mountains for that purpose. She had received such serious injuries because of Yang Chen, so how could he not be furious? Great Master, do you know what kind of material Master was looking for here? Yang Chen asked Wang Yong, forcefully controlling his anger. Red Sun Metal Soul. Wang Yong was also not calm, but he still said the name of the material for Yang Chen. Little Yu wanted to refine a top-notch fire-attributed flying sword for you, but since she lacked the Red Sun Metal Soul, she had come to the greater mountains, but hadn't expected that she would be entering a trap. Because of the effects of Lingzi Jiakuro pill, Gao Yu's face became much livelier. The injuries on her body also began to heal slowly, so her condition was apparently pretty good. But how could such heavy injuries heal immediately? It would take at least half a year or more to heal completely. Master's Qianqin pouch has been snatched by the enemy. Yang Chen noticed this during his careful inspection. Since Wang Yong would definitely not embezzle it, the only explanation was that it had been robbed by the enemy. The only thing that little Yu has is her destined flying sword and these 7 feather clothes. Although the 7 feather clothes have already been ruined, if it were not for these pearls on her body, I also wouldn't have been able to find her. Suppressing his anger, Wang Yong looked at his cherished disciple's face, which was still exposing a slightly pained expression, and in a voice laced with hatred, said. She was lucky that she escaped here and launched a signal for help, otherwise the consequences would have been too horrible to imagine. This was certainly great luck, otherwise Yang Chen and Wang Yong wouldn't have known until they heard the news of Gao Yu's death. Since the Qianqin pouch has been robbed, then clearly it had something which those people wanted. Yang Chen coldly analyzed. Since they have dared to attack my master, no matter who they are, I will help them meet their tragic death. Yang Chen, you take little Yu back and return to the Puryang Palace. I must still investigate a little more here to find out who those bastards which dared to attack my disciple were. Wang Yong had also lost his temper. Great Master, I think it will be better if you would take Master back. Yang Chen shook his head, directly opposing Wang Yong's proposal. Hearing Yang Chen's words, Wang Yong glared at him. If he did not have a reasonable explanation, he would not mind being rude to Yang Chen. You are a Yuning stage expert, whoever did it will not dare to admit it in front of you. Yang Chen slowly said. But this disciple is different, I am only a foundation stage youngster, so they would not be afraid to admit it in front of this disciple. In any case, they must have done it to silence her. This disciple also wants to take a look who the son of a bitch who dared to injure my master is. The great master and the grand disciple were the same, both giving their reasons to look for the people who injured her. Hearing their conversation, both Shikui and Xie wanted to laugh, but both of them knew the current situation, so they did not utter any sound. Wang Yong also mulled over this. What Yang Chen was saying was correct. If he, a Yuning stage experts went out personally, then who would be foolish enough to admit that they had launched a sneak attack on his disciple? In any case, if this youngster Yang Chen went out, then maybe he could spy on some people and swindle the information about who did it out of them. After a moment, Wang Yong finally gave his approval. Good, I will take little Yu in return, you have to be careful. While speaking, he fished out a few pearl-like things from his Qianqin pouch and gave them to Yang Chen. These are some fire thunder pearls, refined by me personally. They have immense firepower, so use them when necessary, there is no need to save them. Yang Chen reached out his hand, but he handed him a jade bottle in return. Great Master, these are some Lingzi Jiakuro pills, give one to Master every 5 days, and her injury will heal even faster. Both of them were concerned about Gao Yu, so there was no need for formality. Following this, Wang Yong looked at Yang Chen and then again looked at Shikui and Xie at his side. Seeing them, he felt relieved. With the 2 Yuning stage demon beasts, who specialized in covering their tracks, there should not be any problems on his side. After you find the main culprit, no matter who he is, you must immediately kill him for me. Wang Yong said, his voice filled with endless hatred. If the matter becomes big, I will take the blame. Since they dared to harm Lit Yu, I will kill their entire family. Great Master, take care. Yang Chen nodded his head, following which his gaze followed Wang Yong carrying Gao Yu and leaving. Only after Wang Yong's silhouette couldn't be seen anymore did Yang Chen heave a long sigh. Finally he was relieved from the sight of his master. With Great Master Wang Yong at her side during the return journey, her safety would be ensured. After she returned to the Puryang Palace, there would be no more problems and she could recuperate with ease. But the case for finding the culprit who had launched a sneak attack on Gao Yu and heavily injured her was far from being closed. Inside of the greater mountains, everyone was responsible for themselves, it was a dog-eat-dog world. Yang Chen could absolutely not endure Gao Yu being injured, even more so after learning that she was injured while looking for suitable materials for him. The region where Wang Yong had appeared was the entrance of a cave, so Gao Yu had probably been hiding inside previously. Without saying much, Yang Chen went in to take a look. This was a naturally formed tunnel, though it was unknown how Gao Yu discovered it. After being seriously injured, she escaped to there and, using the last bit of spiritual power that she had, she launched a signal for help and immediately concealed herself at the cave's entrance and lost consciousness. Yang Chen could still see mouthfuls of blood Gao Yu had spat, but at this moment, they had all turned purple-black already. Looking at these, Yang Chen could imagine the pain Gao Yu had suffered, and the more he saw them, the more his hatred towards those people rose. This was however certainly not the site where the attack happened, because apart from some mess which Gao Yu had made outside when she had hastily escaped to there were no other traces. So since no clues could be found inside, after staying there for a short moment, Yang Chen came out of the cave and covered the entrance. After loudly calling Shikui and Xia, he began to leave. "Where should we go?" Xia casually asked. Master's Qianqin pouch was robbed, so there was definitely some precious object inside. "Let's have a look in the surroundings and see where can we find some market, maybe we will find some clues there." Although Yang Chen was angry, he was not frantic and calmly analyzed everything to find the region where they could find some clues. Frankly speaking, the most reliable way to identify the culprit was for Gao Yu herself to identify them after waking up, but the enemy had launched a sneak attack on her, so Yang Chen was not sure if she knew the enemy's identity, so maybe trying to use some other method would be easier. The Greater Mountains also did not completely follow the jungle law everywhere, there still were some safe places. These regions were places to carry out business transactions, and since everyone had participated in this, everyone agreed that no fights could happen at these places. All grudges had to be settled outside. These regions were important to Yang Chen's investigation. As long as he could find some clues, Yang Chen could immediately make Shikui and Xia connect with the demon beasts of the Greater Mountain. Maybe then he would be able to find the site of the incident and then the attacker. The two formidable demon beasts changed back into their original shapes, following Yang Chen's wishes. A palm-sized sand scorpion and a palm-long meadow viper occupied Yang Chen's shoulders. These two appeared to be most ordinary animals. When other people looked at them, they would only think that they were Yang Chen's house pets and would not even consider them to be demon beasts. But in Yang Chen's hand there was a flying sword. This flying sword was gifted to Yang Chen by Elder Wu after he had refined the heaven-seizing pill as a present. This flying sword was very high grade. Apart from the defensive spell of the Medicine Garden's dome, this was the highest grade magic weapon which Yang Chen had. Holding it within his hand clearly looked like he was showing off. Because this kind of high-grade flying sword, which was even good for a Yuning stage expert, was in the hands of a mere foundation stage cultivator, it would clearly look like waste in the eyes of anyone. In the Greater Mountains, everyone hid their identity, but they were Jidan stage cultivators at least. Only very rarely would some peak foundation stage cultivator appear, but he would then be extremely careful and never reveal his valuables so as to not catch the attention of others. But there was basically no case of an initial foundation stage cultivator like Yang Chen who would swagger around, carrying such a precious treasure. Yang Chen did not try to find a destination very meticulously and just picked some random direction and begin to steer his flying sword. The speed of the flying sword was not very fast, but the light of the flying sword reached quite far, as if it was afraid that other people would not see it. He had been flying for barely 2 hours when someone suddenly looked at Yang Chen and a formidable spiritual awareness swept across. Yang Chen also did not pay much attention to it and kept on minding his own business, but the master of the spiritual awareness couldn't hold back. Shua. The flying sword quickly rose from halfway up the mountain and rushed towards Yang Chen. The flying sword had still not reached there, but the master of the swordlight yelled in a loud voice. "Fellow Taoist, wait a minute." Yang Chen immediately stopped in the sky, but the flying sword continued forward and only stopped after traveling a bit further. In the eyes of the other person, this was a clear sign that Yang Chen did not have a complete grasp of his flying sword, which made him even more determined. This person was a male Jidan expert. "Fellow Taoist, why are you in such a hurry? Where are you going?" The Jidan stage expert had a smile on his face. He was looking at Yang Chen like a wolf was looking at a fat lamb in front of him. "Myself is just looking for some people to ask for directions." The smile on Yang Chen's face was even wider than that of the Jidan expert. "Fellow Taoist just appeared at the perfect time, maybe you can give me some directions." If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 146. This place is dangerous. The Greater Mountains are very dangerous. The Jidan stage expert had a very warm smile, but he stretched out his hand, trying to grab Yang Chen's wrist. "Didn't your sex elders tell you that?" With one movement, a portion of spirit power rushed out from his hand. The Zhanxian stage expert was acting as if this had nothing to do with him and calmly said. Not knowing how you died is also a kind of blessing in some situations. If you want someone to blame, you can only blame yourself for not hiding your treasures. After he had finished speaking, the Zhanxian stage expert revealed a shocked expression. He had initially expected that this youngster would squirm in pain, but he was completely calm without any change in expressions. Want to kill me? Looking at the astonished face of the attacker, Yang Chen revealed a smile. Then you must not blame me. The Zhanxian stage expert was just about to take his hand back in great alarm, but a pain suddenly appeared in his hand, and soon afterwards it became even more painful. It was already too late to let go. Bowing his head to look where he had grabbed Yang Chen's wrist, he immediately saw a blood-red vine on his wrist. At this moment, the vine had already given birth to very small thorn-like roots, which had directly entered his skin. This was also not important, the crucial point was that the thorns which had entered his body were spreading through his entire body, following his veins. With just a moment's effort, it had already drilled through his arms and shoulders and entered the pit of his stomach. The Zhanxian stage expert was scared to death on the scene. What is this thing? So evil. He could not think of anything to use, and the thing which had drilled through to his stomach was definitely not some nourishing medicine. Just a moment ago he wanted to oppress Yang Chen using the spirit power in his body, but now he discovered that all of the spirit power in his body had already been sucked out by this blood-colored vine. Not even a tiny bit was left. Cold sweat, which he had not experienced in a long time, covered his forehead. The Zhanxian expert looked at Yang Chen, who was smiling while standing in front of him, as if he was looking at a demon. Originally I only wanted to ask you for directions, but since you wanted to kill me, I also don't mind giving a lesson to you. Yang Chen said while continuing to smile. Now, can I ask you for directions? The Zhanxian expert couldn't think of anything he could do aside from nodding his head again and again. That Yang Chen had asked this question gave the old man some hope, maybe there was still a chance to redeem himself. According to Yang Chen's words just a moment ago, he seemed quite mild and was only talking about teaching him a lesson. Where is the closest market from here? Yang Chen retreated a few steps to find a place to sit and then asked. It's in that direction, approximately 2 days away from here. The Zhanxian expert didn't dare to be neglectful, and although his body was still shivering, his hand pointed in a direction with lightning speed. There is the Cut Cloud Valley, where everyone gathers to do business. As some kind of incident occurred near the market recently, like looting of some treasures or killing someone. Even after finding this person, Yang Chen certainly did not think that his luck was so great that he had directly found one of the people he was looking for, therefore he did not care to reveal his purpose in the least. This kind of thing happens nearly every day, so it is nothing noteworthy. The Zhanxian stage expert said that with a bitter laugh, unable to deal with the fact that his body had already become somewhat limp, he carefully replied. Do you want to find someone or something? I am relatively familiar with this region, maybe I can assist you. In fact, in the greater mountains, killing people and looting things was indeed very common, even just a moment ago, weren't Yang Chen and that Zhanxian stage expert doing the same thing? While the result had been different, this really was not a big deal here. I am looking for Red Sun Metal Soul, where can I find it? Previously Yang Chen had only heard that it was very chaotic here, but since he hadn't seen it personally, he hadn't expected it to be so brazen. But this was also good for him, he would have no apprehensions when doing his work. Red Sun Metal Soul. The Zhanxian expert began to tremble and at the same time also began to ponder. After thinking for a good moment he slapped his head as if he had thought of something. Trying to curry favor with Yang Chen, he said. 2 months ago, I heard that they were going to auction some, and afterwards a mysterious woman bought it. If you are interested, I can take you to the market to inquire. A mysterious woman had bought the Red Sun Metal Soul. Yang Chen's heart jumped, could it be that this mysterious woman was his master? She had bought the Red Sun Metal Soul, but was attacked by people who wanted to rob her. This more or less confirmed what Yang Chen had thought. Which market? Where is it? Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Yang Chen calmly asked. Where can I find that mysterious woman? She already left the Cut Cloud Valley. The Zhanxian expert saw that Yang Chen was interested, so he was also excited, thinking that his chances of survival had increased, he pointed in another direction and said. In this direction, there is the Devil Flame Valley. There are many devil cultivators and demon beasts over there, and the number of treasures is large. But if you don't have the strength you must not go. The Devil Flame Valley. Yang Chen firmly committed this name to memory. Looking at the Zhanxian expert who was facing him with extreme respect, he thought of something and suddenly asked. In the recent days, has there been someone in the surroundings who was chased to death? Have there been people who have been looking around for someone's whereabouts with great fanfare? The Jidan stage expert began think. Yang Chen had asked this so clearly so he could be almost certain that Yang Chen was looking for someone, and the one he was trying to hunt down was moreover not the one who was being hunted. There was no need to ask, this was certainly a vendetta. But with Yang Chen's strength at the initial foundation stage, wanting to behave atrociously in the Devil Flame Valley was certainly not possible. Just as he was about to advise him, he suddenly remembered something. His life and death was still in Yang Chen's hand, so he also did not dare to say any unnecessary words and could only rack his brains, trying to find more such information which could give him higher chances of survival. After thinking for long, he couldn't remember anything big that had happened in the surroundings, so he could only shake his head. There hasn't been. After he said this, afraid that Yang Chen would kill him, he hastily added. Are you looking for someone? I can lead the way. You will guide me? Yang Chen sneered, then softly said. We are total strangers, and I just wanted to ask you for some directions when you tried to kill me, so why you trying to guide me now? Do you want to lead me to a nest of demons? No, I just want you to spare my life. The Jidan stage expert had heard Yang Chen's words which were not too encouraging, so he quickly begged for forgiveness. But Yang Chen had never intended to give him any opportunity to live. The blood phantom vine, which had already entered the Jidan expert's body, suddenly began to crazily absorb blood. For every grievance, someone is responsible. For every debt there is a debtor. You wanted to take my life first, so don't blame me. The Jidan expert only vaguely heard Yang Chen's last words before disappearing into complete darkness. One Jidan expert was not a big problem for the blood phantom vine, which had already absorbed the blood of someone who was almost a Dacheng stage expert. Within a short moment, the Jidan expert turned into a heap of dried bones. From here to the Devil Flame Valley would at least take half a month, even if he used the flying shuttle, but Yang Chen was using a common flying sword, so the time would change to at least 1 month. The Jidan expert's Qiankan pouch was collected by Yang Chen, but he didn't really look at the things inside. Right now, Yang Chen's was filled with rage to the bottom of his heart because of Gao Yu's injuries, so how could he think of paying attention to these small spoils? Yang Chen didn't intend to completely believe the Jidan expert's words, but he still intended to first stop at the Cut Cloud Valley and take a look at the circumstances there and only then move forward. In any case, it was only 2 days away from his current location, so Yang Chen would not be hindered much. The Cut Cloud Valley was a small market which was at the edge of the greater mountains. That's why there were more human cultivators than demon cultivators, no matter if they were cultivators of the Tao or Devil Path cultivators. The valley was very warm, apparently someone had arranged a small spring spell formation. This spell formation was not very useful, but regardless of what season it was at the Cut Cloud Valley, it could maintain a constant temperature inside. Simply speaking, all 4 seasons were like spring there. Although there were not many people, according to what Yang Chen found, there were at least 3 devil cultivators. One had a black-colored zombie following behind him, another one had red eyes, as if worried that other people would not see that he had killed a lot. There was still one more, a woman who was extremely charming. Even at this public place, she was throwing coquettish glances everywhere without worry. When looking at Yang Chen, she also threw a flirtatious smile at him. In another place not far away, there was also a demon cultivator. His strength was at least at the peak Jidan stage, but he was not concealing his demonic presence and was just calmly sitting on the ground. Furthermore, in another place, 3 Dao cultivators of some sect were also sitting calmly, absolutely not worried about being attacked by others. Although the greater mountains followed the law of the jungle, using force was strictly prohibited in these markets. These were everyone's place of rest, so everyone followed these rules without exception. There was no need for anyone to make them forcefully follow these rules. As long as anyone broke these rules, they would be the target of a multitudes of arrows. Who would dare to bring everyone's wrath on themselves? That's why everyone could only obediently comply with the rules. But when Yang Chen entered the Cut Cloud Valley, it still gave rise to everyone's attention. Any person coming here had at least the strength of the initial Jidan stage. A rookie like Yang Chen who was just at the foundation stage had never come there before. But there was nobody who felt pity or sympathy with him. Everyone who matched gazes with Yang Chen looked at him as if they were examining a prey. Even on the way to the Cloud Valley, Yang Chen had sensed many greedy gazes in the surroundings. I am looking for Red Sun Metal Soul, do you know where can I find it? Yang Chen did not pay any attention to those and directly went to the biggest store in Cloud Valley and asked the shopkeeper, offering him a few caddies of low-grade spirit stones. Although he was only a shopkeeper, he was still a peak foundation stage expert. After looking at Yang Chen, he looked at the spirit stones in front of him and then faintly shook his head, saying, "These are not enough for the information you want." Without paying any attention to him, Yang Chen took a profound yang fruit out of the medicine garden and placed it on top of those spirit stones. Looking at the profound yang fruit, a shine passed through the eyes of the shopkeeper, then he looked at Yang Chen with a smile that was not a smile and said. A few days ago, I heard that one batch appeared in the Devil Flame Valley, but it had already been auctioned and sold. Is there some place where I can buy it? Yang Chen was not very surprised at this information. He knew that the unknown Jidan expert which had died in his hands would not lie in the binding of the blood phantom vine, but he wanted some more information. I am ready to pay a high price. The flying sword which Yang Chen was using was originally an extremely high-grade flying sword which was given to him by Elder Wu. If he added on the red sun metal soul, its grade could be increased again. This shopkeeper's eyes did not miss that point, so there was no reason for him to doubt that Yang Chen had another purpose. The red sun metal soul is very rare. Only a piece is found every few decades, so if you want to find it, you must find that customer. The shopkeeper had also only been at the Greater Mountain for a short while, so he stayed at this market. His knowledge and experience was also not that extensive, and he had only recently found out the market prices. He immediately shook his head. I want to find information about that customer, is there any way you can help me? Yang Chen slightly scowled and asked. There is no way. The shopkeeper shook his head again. The auction market of the Greater Mountains strictly prohibits releasing any buyer's information, but. This one line raised Yang Chen's attention and he immediately asked. But what? If you really want to, then you can try your luck at the auction market and leave a notice there. If they receive some information about what you want, they will notify you. The shopkeeper pointed out a direction to Yang Chen. But for such information, you must be ready to invest a high price. Then. Yang Chen nodded without making any comment. Soon afterwards he raised his head. One final question, is there any auction that had happened here 1 or 2 days ago? Your luck is too bad. The shopkeeper shook his head. This Cut Cloud Valley is very small, usually people only buy things necessary to restore their strength. The genuine treasures can only be found in a big market. The Devil Flame Valley is going to have an auction in the future, you can try your luck there. Yang Chen did not ask anything more and merely extended his hand to point towards the things for the shopkeeper to take them. The shopkeeper happily accepted the profound yang fruit and those low-level spirit stones and turned around to leave. But after he had turned around, the shopkeeper remembered something and turned around again, happily saying. Looks like you are a first-timer, so I have some advice for you. These greater mountains are unlike your sect mountain. There were killings everywhere, if you have some good treasure, you must conceal it carefully, otherwise you won't even know what killed you. Many thanks for the warning. Yang Chen was slightly surprised at the shopkeeper's good intentions, but he did not care too much about other people's warnings. You should have elders at your sect, so if you need anything from here, it would be better to send them. The shopkeeper again said. With your cultivation it is very dangerous here. Take note of my advice and leave the Cloud Valley immediately, using your quickest speed to leave and return to your sect. Perhaps it is not too late. After speaking, he immediately turned around and left. I am really looking forward to someone attacking me. Yang Chen lowered his head and faintly mumbled to himself, so nobody other than him heard it. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 147 You have a chance to survive. As if proving the shopkeeper right, the moment Yang Chen left Cloud Valley, he immediately sensed people chasing him in the surroundings. Yang Chen sneered and still continued on his flying sword as before. Nobody had noticed that the small sand scorpion and the meadow viper on his body had disappeared without a trace a few moments ago. Shoo. The flying sword made a flitting sound, forcing Yang Chen to stop. In front of him 2 people appeared, these 2 were among the people he had seen at Cloud Valley. Before anyone could say anything, a lovely laughter could be heard coming from behind Yang Chen's back. Yang Chen didn't even need to turn his head around to know that it was that devil cultivator who was throwing around flirtatious glances in the Cloud Valley. While they were in the air, below them the zombie had silently appeared, like a cheetah. On the side of that zombie appeared the devil cultivator controlling it. On one side, the demon Kai had skyrocketed, while on the other side killing intent was wreaking havoc. A pair of blood-red eyes were attentively watching Yang Chen, as if a hungry wolf was watching its food. Are all of you together? Yang Chen looked at everyone approaching him from the surroundings and faintly smiled. This really is a good place to kill someone and loot them. Youngster, we don't want to kill you, so leave your Qianqin pouch and your flying sword here and run away as far as you can. The Dao cultivator in front of him said fiercely. And what if I don't do so? Yang Chen calmly looked at the person speaking and slowly asked. Then you will have to die. The complexion of the person speaking changed and he began to attack as soon as these words left his mouth. The flying sword flashed within his hands and he rushed towards Yang Chen. Ding. The crisp and clear sound echoed in the surroundings between Yang Chen and the person who had said those words. Everyone in the surroundings was amazed. How was this possible? The loud sound had just rang when suddenly a grey ribbon appeared before everyone's eyes. The long ribbon was like a living animal, incomparably nimble, and in a flash it rolled around the flying sword. Looking at this, the Tao cultivator, who was the master of sword, was greatly alarmed and used all of his spiritual awareness to command the flying sword to return. However, the grey ribbon was extremely flexible and strong, so the flying sword was unable to make any movement after it had been wrapped up. Seeing that things were far from encouraging, the other people in the surroundings shouted loudly and released their magic weapons one by one. But just as their magic weapons had left their hands, their bodies immediately tensed up. On closer look, it could be seen that their bodies had already been bound by that magic weapon. After rolling around their bodies, the long ribbon suddenly tightened and everyone released a blood-curdling scream before losing consciousness. Regardless of what kind of magic weapon they used, all of them fell down from the sky. Without their master's spiritual awareness controlling them, they had all turned into masterless objects. Initially that zombie had also been moving, but he also suddenly stopped under the effect of the ribbon. Yang Chen collected his own flying sword and his figure slowly descended on the ground. The long ribbon in the sky also began to come to the ground. The slender ribbon then turned into Shikui. He had returned to his original shape just a moment ago. His body had become thumb-thick but 3,300 meters long and had captured all of them after catching them off guard. Shikui was an expert in concealing himself, adding to that the fact that his cultivation was a lot higher than these people. They didn't have a clue that they were being surrounded by Shikui. The blood phantom vine quickly replaced Shikui's body and coiled around the bodies of those people, even the zombie was no exception. Soon, the group of people began to wake up one by one under Yang Chen's prodding. For every grievance someone is responsible, for every debt there is a debtor, since you wanted to kill, then you must also be ready to get killed yourself. These people were powerless because the blood phantom vine was wrapped around them. Hearing Yang Chen's words, everyone began to tremble. At the same time as Yang Chen said these words, he did not forget to use spiritual awareness to communicate with the demon cultivators. I don't know who you are, but I also don't care. Yang Chen continued. I only want to know one thing. Speaking until there, Yang Chen paused, as if giving everyone some time to recall their memories and then continued. This is what I want to know. A woman was recently attacked not far from here. Who were the attackers? I don't know. Everyone revealed anxious expressions. The first one to speak was the devil cultivator who had blood-red eyes. Even though he was under these circumstances, he didn't seem to care much. Yang Chen creased his brows together. He suddenly discovered an anomaly about that person. He was just about to speak when that person suddenly started laughing heartily and his body rose up while the blood phantom vine which was coiled around his body loosened and untied. Even Yang Chen didn't know when this happened. The mere blood phantom vine wants to subdue me. My blood fiend sect's great method of blood evasion does not its reputation for nothing. With great laughter, the devil cultivator's entire body turned blood red as if he was made out of light and within a moment he completely disappeared from everyone's vision. The loud laughter still hadn't disappeared when the blood-colored silhouette which had flown away just a moment ago suddenly returned to the ground with an even quicker speed and a loud sound. The person was still in the air as a few vines of the blood phantom vine crazily wrapped around him and deeply entered the body of the blood-colored silhouette. This time, Yang Chen didn't give him any opportunity and the blood phantom vine immediately began to absorb his blood crazily. Within a few moments, the blood-colored silhouette turned into a corpse in front of everyone and didn't move anymore. I am not very fond of uncooperative people. Yang Chen didn't even look at the dried-up corpse and only walked back to the group of people, slowly saying. Who else wants to run, they are free to try. The remaining people were outdoing one another and shaking their heads. Yang Chen also didn't want to talk much with them and with one thought from him, the zombie was raised before Yang Chen. Even after refining a metal corpse for 100 years, you couldn't even withstand a single blow, HMPH useless tricks. Shaking his head, Yang Chen concluded this. Hearing this, the face of the devil cultivator who was controlling the corpse turned unsightly, but Yang Chen continued. Since you will not speak up, then I will not leave you. The wave of hissing sounds which gave everyone a sour feeling began to rise from the metal corpse's body. Everyone's eyes were fixed on it and they suddenly discovered that the body of the metal corpse had been corroded by something and a big hole had appeared in it. The hissing sound was precisely the sound of corrosion of the zombie. Soon, the incomparably stiff corpse turned into a river of pus flowing across the ground. While flowing it even created some small holes in the ground and only then did the hissing sound stop. I have asked once, I will not ask again. Yang Chen again confronted the remaining people. The one among you who tells me will live. If you do not know then it is just unfortunate and we will certainly celebrate the anniversary of your death next year this day. I know something. I know something. I request you not to kill me. This time, the one who had opened the mouth was precisely the female devil cultivator who had been throwing around flirtatious looks. Under the threat of death, the witch who was initially throwing around hundreds of smiles turned deathly pale. Her entire body began to tremble and shiver. The frightened words she had said while trembling even made people feel like a young lady who was frightened to the extreme, and thus they couldn't help but take pity on her. "Please don't kill me. Please don't kill me." That witch talked without stopping. "I will inform you of everything I know, I am also willing to serve you as a servant or a slave, but please don't kill me." Seeing that Yang Chen was looking at her, the spirit of survival began to grow stronger within the witch's eyes. Her expression showing that she was willing to do anything to remain alive completely fit with her revealing clothes, and taking her charming face into account, any cold person would take her as a slave. "How dare you show this trifling, not even half-matured, beautiful woman devil cultivation in front of me?" But it was as if Yang Chen's heart was made of stone. "Say what you know, otherwise you die." 2 months ago, there were indeed a few people hunting a woman. They were from Fulong Cave and Luhui Valley. That witch did not dare to say anything useless and quickly said what she knew. "I am very sorry." Yang Chen very regretfully shook his head and said to that witch as if regretting. "I should have told you about something. The blood phantom vine has already taken root in your heart, so I know when you are lying. Basically you don't know anything, so die." After he finished speaking, the witch suddenly issued a desperate yell, but she only yelled once and did not yell again. In front of the other people, that beautiful witch turned into skin and bones. After seeing the death of 2 people and the corrosion of the zombie, the remaining people did not think of using lies and started to do their utmost to think of some event which had happened recently. Everyone was fighting for their own lives. "Spare my life. Look, we are both from Dao sects, please spare my life." That very first cultivator who had attacked Yang Chen did not have that arrogant and bossy attitude anymore. He had begun to weep almost immediately. "I came here only half a month ago, so I don't know anything." "In only half a month, you have learned to murder and rob people, not bad." Yang Chen faintly nodded his head, and afterwards he said with a smile. "Then you are of no use, die." Again there was a blood-curdling scream and a dead corpse. There was only a Dao cultivator, a devil cultivator and a demon cultivator who began to shudder in fear remaining. Seeing that Yang Chen's gaze was fixated on him, that person whose zombie had been destroyed began to yell loudly. "Looks like you haven't remembered anything which could save your life." Yang Chen regretfully shook his head. That devil cultivator's loud yelling suddenly came to a stop as his body was reduced a small puddle. Soon he went to keep those other dried corpses company underground. It was not that Yang Chen was fond of killing them, but at the greater mountains, even if he showed leniency towards those people, they would not be grateful. There was only one rule here. The weak were the prey for the strong. If you let others go, it meant they would probably come back and try to kill you. Right now, Yang Chen was quite calm. He had only one desire, and that was to know who attacked his master. Those people certainly would not admit it themselves, so he had to use this kind of method, and along the way he would probably also attract the interest of the people responsible, or he may be able to obtain some information by killing people like this. Currently only a Dao cultivator and a demon cultivator were left in front of Yang Chen. When Yang Chen's gaze passed by, the Dao sect's disciple began to shiver so badly that he was not even able to speak. Yang Chen sighed and turned his gaze towards the demon cultivator. The demon cultivator had completely lost his mind under Yang Chen's pressure and was just about to scream when he suddenly remembered something, and forcing himself to restrain his shout, he began to speak in a high-pitched voice. "I remember something. Last month one of my friends informed me that some people had been hunting a woman to obtain the red sun metal soul which she had, but that female had been able to flee." Hearing the word red sun metal soul, Yang Chen immediately knew that his plan was working. With one thought of his, the Dao sect's disciple was completely absorbed by the blood phantom vine. Hearing the blood-curdling scream of a fellow Dao sect disciple, Yang Chen was like an amiable old man, the smile never left his face. That demon cultivator told him everything. Apparently there was some kind of cultivation method for demon beasts in the greater mountains. "Your friend told you?" The blood phantom vine raised the demon cultivator to Yang Chen's height. As if wishing to confirm it, Yang Chen again asked. "My friend knew about this, he informed me this personally." Demon cultivator hastily nodded, knowing that his life was at stake. "Where is that friend of yours? Help me look for him." Yang Chen said, without giving him any leeway. Yes. The demon cultivator hurriedly nodded and then carefully said. "You see, this is inconvenient for me, can you release it a little? Then give me your demon soul." Yang Chen ordered him without the slightest hesitation. He could be released, but Yang Chen had to hold his life in his own hands, otherwise, if he was even slightly careless and allowed him to escape, the trail of clues which Yang Chen had obtained after so much pain would be completely lost. A demon cultivator had no alternative other than handing over his demon soul, but this was different from an agreement where both parties agreed. Instead, it was forcefully obtained by the enemy to control or kill him. However, his life was already in Yang Chen's hands, so the demon beast did not dare even to play any games and obediently handed over his demon soul. Only after the demon soul of the demon cultivator entered Yang Chen's spirit sea did Yang Chen find out that this demon beast was actually a grey wolf. He also didn't know that he had cultivated the appearance transforming secrets and had transformed himself into something strange. Even Yang Chen didn't know his original form until now. Only after getting hold of the other party's demon soul did Yang Chen control the blood phantom vine and release the wolf. But the demon soul in Yang Chen's hands, the demon wolf didn't even have the slightest thought of rebelling and only did what Yang Chen told him, like collecting the Qianqin pouches of those dead people and delivering them to Yang Chen. After flipping through them once, Yang Chen realized that these people didn't have anything precious. Apart from a few flying swords, there was nothing that Yang Chen wanted, so he immediately gave them to the demon wolf. "I will give you these as a reward for helping me in finding your friend." Not only hadn't he died, but he had also made easy money. The demon wolf was delighted and hastily nodded and led Yang Chen to some unknown direction. After flying for almost 3 days, the figure of the demon wolf slowly descended to the ground and pointed towards the front and said with some concern, "My friend is somewhere within this area of the greater mountains, but I need some time to find him, probably 2 days. Quickly go and quickly return." Yang Chen nodded and after finding a seat for himself, he began to meditate. After obtaining Yang Chen's permission, the demon wolf hastily left and entered the mountains. Within Yang Chen's hands again appeared the bottle lid of the medicine garden. Although he was sitting at the same place, his mind was completely immersed within the palace hall of the medicine garden. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 148 Obtaining Clues. Within the palace hall, Mo Qian and her disciples were still cultivating. Because they were cultivating within the palace hall which was rich in spirit power, their cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds in a short time. The 5 Zhanxian stage experts were completely under Yang Chen's control, only Mo Qian, their master, was left, but she was also completely immersed in cultivation after Yang Chen's simple hypnosis. Although her cultivation was at the wielding stage, she was still a vegetable. This was a great waste. While Yang Chen was still unable to order Mo Qian around, like her disciples, a few simple attack moves were still possible. The thought of a sudden wielding stage expert mounting a sneak attack while the enemy was facing an attack from the profound 5 women spell, with the wielding expert coming without any warning and without leaving any clues, really made him excited. This was definitely be the best way of catching other people off guard. Even if Mo Qian had a cultivation at the wielding stage, because she had lost her mind, a simple hypnosis could be easily accomplished. Naturally, Yang Chen could not control Mo Qian directly with his spiritual awareness, but he could issue a few simple commands to her to act accordingly. Simple commands like attacking, fleeing, mounting a sneak attack, concealing or cultivation were not very difficult. Since it was convenient like this, Yang Chen still had to spend 1 whole day to drill all of these things firmly into the depths of Mo Qian's spiritual awareness and practice it to become familiar, which made her think Yang Chen was like her owner. After doing all of this, Yang Chen added even more layers of security on top of it. The appearances of Mo Qian and her disciples still hadn't been changed however, so they couldn't be used rashly. For the time being, Yang Chen decided to put veils on their faces, but this was not a long-term solution. Afterwards, when he had the time, he would change their appearances too. In this kind of environment, Shikui and Shesha were like dragons who had returned to the sea or like tigers who had come back to their mountains and wished to indulge in pleasure, completely forgetting their sense of duty. But they also knew the severity of the situation and were only taking a stroll in the vicinity of this region, not delaying the major matter regarding Yang Chen in the least. The demon wolf also didn't make Yang Chen wait for long. After 1 day, the demon wolf appeared with another demon beast. Without the appearance transforming secrets, the demon wolf definitely looked like a fierce monster, while the other demon beast was a huge spider. My friend's large spider web covers both the sky and the ground, it's not there to injure anyone, only to obtain information of people's activities in the surroundings. The demon wolf explained in place of the spider woman, as if also explaining indirectly why the spider woman knew about the hunt. This reason was indeed acceptable by Yang Chen, and he believed that the spider woman may know something. Yang Chen was not stingy for the reward in the least, and in exchange for the information he directly pulled out 1,000-year ginseng from the medicine garden and stretching out his hand in front of her, he said. "Tell me everything that you know and if it is true, this will be yours." 1,000-year-old ginseng was the greatest enticement for the spider woman, who was at the Zhanxian stage. Even the demon wolf on the side started drooling upon seeing this, but he knew that this was not for him. Earlier their group had surrounded and tried to kill Yang Chen, so leaving the demon wolf alive was already a great favor for him, not to mention that Yang Chen had also given him the Qianqin pouches of his companions, so he did not have much hope regarding this ginseng. Since his demon soul was in Yang Chen's hand, the demon wolf did not dare to play any tricks. These 2 days he had been searching for the spider woman to appear, but the spider woman didn't want to come in contact with Yang Chen, especially after hearing that Yang Chen had killed all of the Jidan experts who had attacked him together. But under the constant begging by the demon wolf, she finally agreed. But after seeing the 1000-year ginseng in Yang Chen's hands, the spider woman did not have any misapprehensions and immediately started to narrate the events of that day. Indeed, on that day a few people were hunting a female. The woman had received serious injuries and was fleeing in disarray, as if she had lost her sight, while, behind her, more than 10 Jidan stage experts were chasing her. Because of her speed, they didn't have the ability to overtake her, however. After that woman had left the huge network of the spider woman did not know what had happened. Which direction did they come from? Yang Chen didn't chatter with the spider woman much and directly asked the question he was most interested in. From that side. The spider woman's memory was very good and moreover with the record of the tears in the spiderweb at that time, it was absolutely precise. The direction in which they had passed through precisely led to the location where Gao Yu was found. Yang Chen again asked about the clothes of that woman at that time, which finally made him sure that this woman was Gao Yu. Who was chasing her? Forcefully repressing his anger, Yang Chen asked about the identity of the killers. That was not very clear, but among them there was someone I've seen before. The spider woman honestly answered, but her tone was slightly sluggish, as if she was deliberately keeping Yang Chen in suspense. Her gaze also frequently swept over the 1000-year ginseng in Yang Chen's hands. Yang Chen sensed the situation of the spider woman and without any hesitation, he threw the ginseng towards her. As long as he knew the identity of the culprit, what was one ginseng? He could even give her all of the ginsengs he had in the medicine garden. So, who was he? After throwing over the ginseng, Yang Chen subsequently asked. He is a person who has been terrorizing everyone at the Greater Mountains for a long time, a peak Jidan stage expert who is only one step away from the Yuaning stage. The spider woman was unable to contain her joy over holding the ginseng and without creating any suspense she directly said. I have seen him twice, both times he was doing some kind of shady business. So who is he? Yang Chen was interested in his identity, not in his cultivation or his actions. He is a guard of some young master. The spider woman continued after thinking for a moment. I don't know his name, but he has a long scar on his face, which is said to be deliberately left to make him appear fierce. This person's cultivation is very high. When I was hiding, I had personally seen him heavily striking that woman once. What young master? Yang Chen immediately asked. On the surface he was calm, but in his heart, he had already given the death penalty to that scar-faced man. That young master is the son of the clan chief of Simhao Manor, so his influence is too great. As long as he takes fancy to something, he would forcefully take it. Whether the spider woman's memory was bad or whether she hadn't come in much contact with it, the things she had told were not complete. But those people frequently move around in the vicinity of the Devil Flame Valley, over there half of the murders or robberies are committed by them. The usuals at the Greater Mountain know how to defend against these people, but if there is some newcomer, he will certainly fall into their evil schemes. Doesn't the auction house there have some rules, like they never leak the identity of a seller or buyer? How can these people know? Although the spider woman did not tell anything in much detail, Yang Chen had already understood the situation completely. These clues had indeed been greatly useful. I have never gone to the auction house. The spider woman mocked herself. I also don't have anything worth auctioning. Yang Chen was completely satisfied with this information. Only the name of that house something manor was unknown to him, but finding it would be very easy. He could casually ask anyone over there to learn it. After Yang Chen would catch the scarred man, even he would honestly spit out the truth. After obtaining the 1000-year ginseng, the spider woman had left happily. But since the demon wolf had tried to kill Yang Chen, he had no other option but to serve as a guide for him. Yang Chen had however promised him that, after reaching the Devil Flame Valley, he would set him free. Even if he was unwilling, the demon wolf had no other option since his demon soul was in Yang Chen's hands. Yang Chen could kill him anytime he wished, so he didn't dare to utter even half a complaint against him and obediently led Yang Chen to the Devil Flame Valley. On the following day, Yang Chen appeared with a low-profile appearance and was not showing off. Even so, with his strength of the initial foundation stage, he still caught the attention of passers-by. But as soon as they acted with evil intentions, they had assured their doom. Along the journey, Yang Chen had never revealed the existence of Shikui and Xiexia and just settled everything with the blood phantom vine. The demon wolf's heart was even more alarmed during the whole journey, especially when people with an even more profound cultivation than his wanted to deal with Yang Chen. If Yang Chen died, then he would also die, as the lives of both of them were connected. But since he had no other alternative, in the beginning, the demon wolf also went out, sometimes persuading them with kind words, sometimes begging, just with the hope that the enemy would let them off. Most of them would let these two go after his acts. But in the cases when others attacked, the demon wolf discovered that Yang Chen had something like the blood phantom vine on his body and could summon the blood phantom vine anytime and anywhere. Handling one or two Jidan experts was a simple matter. Despite the fact that anyone would be horrified upon seeing the dried up corpses left behind after the blood phantom vine had absorbed the blood, the demon wolf had gotten used to it after seeing too many of them. He had moreover discovered that this amiable looking person at his side was simply a god of massacre. As long as anyone had the slightest intention to kill him, the only result would be that they would immediately die. There was just no other option. Especially after hearing Yang Chen's catchphrase. For every grievance someone is responsible, for every debt there is a debtor. He also realized one more thing. When Yang Chen would kill anyone, he would always say this, as if it had become his habit. Even when there was not enough time to say it before killing them, he would still say it to them after they had died. He would never forget to say it. Since the demon wolf still didn't know Yang Chen's name, he had set a nickname for him in his heart. That nickname was for every debt there is debtor, although it was too long, the demon wolf thought it was the closest possible name for him. After 1 month, Yang Chen finally arrived at the Devil Flame Valley. He also complied with his promise and returned the demon soul of the demon wolf to him and allowed him to leave. He himself entered the Devil Flame Valley without any assistance. Although it had valley in its name, the Devil Flame Valley was 100 times larger than the Cut Cloud Valley. It had the biggest market in the Greater Mountains. Just the number of frequently appearing cultivators alone were already over 10,000. Every kind of shop could be found there, everything one could think of was here, furthermore the biggest auction house was also there. While on the journey there, when he was getting rid of people with devious plans, he understood one thing. The attack on Gao Yu was done by the people of the Haoyi Manor. Many people knew their notorious reputation and nobody would stand in for them to hide the truth. But he was still not clear about how Gao Yu's identity was leaked from the auction house. Yang Chen had already become suspicious that the auction house was the main culprit, but since there was no proof, he couldn't be certain. But Yang Chen did not want simple retaliation, he still had to find all of the people who were involved in the attack on Gao Yu and make them pay the price. Since they had dared to lay their hands on his master, even someone from the heavens wouldn't be able to save them. He found an inn to stay first and then decided to not come out until the next auction. His plan was simple. He would go to the auction and see if he could draw the attention of some people. At that time he could ascertain the auction house's role based on whether someone looked for him or not. The extent of the Devil Flame Valley was very large, thus there were many cultivators. But what Yang Chen was seeing was that a majority of the people had a cultivation at the Jidan stage. Apparently the way of doing anything they wanted to also enticed peak Jidan experts. Therefore Yang Chen could see a lot of peak Jidan stage cultivators. Occasionally Yang Chen would see some Yuning stage experts who all just flashed through his vision and then couldn't be seen anymore. There were not a lot of foundation stage cultivators in the Greater Mountains. He could see some servants in the city, but the foundation stage was considered as the younger generation, so they could only enter these shops through the back door. After all, everyone was busy entertaining customers there and they couldn't let a Jidan expert feel wronged. Yang Chen was very lucky, after he had spent just 10 days there was news of a large auction taking place soon. This was also one of the customs of the Greater Mountains. Every month there would be at least one auction. The Greater Mountains were a great place to attack the Yuning stage bottleneck, but there were not many spirit veins here, so if cultivators wanted to cultivate, they could only rely on absorbing the spirit power within spirit stones. Thus the requirement of spirit stones there was very large. Similarly, the Greater Mountains was rich in natural resources, moreover the quality was also not very bad. Usually, as long as they could find some precious things, cultivators would not be stingy in spending spirit stones to buy it. Moreover, the best way to maximize profit was precisely the auction house. Although common things could be bought at the shops, genuine treasures could only be found in auctions. Since everyone in the Greater Mountain knew how dangerous this region was, including the organizer of the auction house only recognized spirit stones and not the reputation of any person. Moreover, the people entering the auction could not see each other. As for who received the treasure, this was kept a secret. This guarantee was the principle of continuous transactions. But in Yang Chen's eyes, this rule had already been broken by someone in the auction. Gao Yu being attacked by people clearly showed this point. Following that, Yang Chen just wanted to ascertain this point. Finally, on the opening day of the auction, Yang Chen entered the public lobby of the auction house in a cloak he had bought in advance to hide his identity. Following the participants of the auction, he reached the door of the auction hall. The cloak which hid his appearance also blocked all of spiritual awareness probes around him, and it also made everyone appear the same, so nobody could tell any difference. The only thing capable of differentiating the buyer's identity was the license plate which was given at the gate of the auction. 917. That was the number which Yang Chen had received. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 149 Warming up a stage. Although the mantle could hide his image, it had a fatal flaw. It could not be used during fights. If someone started fighting while wearing this, it would immediately break into pieces. This was also the reason why those people who were trying to steal could reveal the identity of their target. The inside of the auction house was very large, but it didn't appear so from outside. Yang Chen knew that this was some kind of space, like the medicine garden, which had been refined by at least 2 Dacheng stage experts. Only then could it have that size. After entering the room, everyone went to the rooms corresponding to their number plates. They only had one exit from where one could leave the auction house at any time, so basically nobody would be able to come in contact with other clients in the auction. Under such circumstances, if other people knew what someone had purchased, who would believe that the auction house had no relation to it? After entering the room, Yang Chen carefully sized up everything, but he could not find anything wrong. The number of rooms should be equal to number of plates they had been given. Inside of the room there was only one place to sit. On the other side of the room, a desk was placed with some light refreshments and tea, making it clear that other customers could not access it. In front of the seat was a huge window which was perfect to show the image of the item and the auctioneer, but nothing else could be seen. On the armrest there was a bidding stone, which looked like a gem. As long as one kept their hand on the gem and unleashed their spiritual awareness, one could immediately make his bid known to the auctioneer. The staff was still entering the arena one by one, but the auction of many small things had already begun. Frankly speaking, none of the really precious materials had been displayed. They were only being used to warm up the crowd so that the customers wouldn't get bored. Initially Yang Chen did not care about any of these things, but he hadn't anticipated that the first thing that would come up would shock him. This item is being shown in the auction for around 10 years now, but there has been no one who knew what use it has. Along with the auctioneer's words, something appeared in the area where the auction articles were arranged. That item resembled some kind of weapon, it had a handle, but it did not resemble a sword or a metal truncheon. The closest thing would be a ruler. It even had fine marked scales on the top surface. But it could also not be called a ruler, as the marked scales were unevenly distributed, which really confused people as to what this thing actually was. This thing is not something worth mentioning, even the material is not of very high quality. The anchor was clearly not very enthusiastic about this thing. His tone was very casual. The owner of this thing has some relation with the auction house, and because of that, it has been shown in the auction house for 10 years. The price is starting from 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones. Is anyone interested in buying it? Although he was the host, he was doing things very half-heartedly. Perhaps this was his temperament, or maybe these things shown in the beginning were just to warm the stage. As he didn't even wait for everyone before beginning, it should be insignificant. It was an item whose use was unknown, which was also not suitable for being a magic weapon, while the ingredients of the item were also low-leveled, yet they were demanding the high price of 1 caddy. If it were not for the anchor's words that the master of this item had some relation with the auction house, maybe it would have already been thrown away long ago. But without any hesitation, Yang Chen immediately placed his hand on the bidding stone and issued the base price. 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones. The only use of this thing is that it can change color when spirit power is passed through it. The anchor had the intention to continue the introduction, but he suddenly heard the indication of someone bidding and was completely startled. He confirmed it once again, not daring to believe it, but after confirming that someone had indeed bid on it, he immediately shouted. 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stone, is there anyone who wants to bid higher? Once the anchor's words came out, it immediately caused a ruckus in all of the rooms. That object, which had been used to warm the stage for so long and was believed to never be sold, surprisingly had someone bid on. Everyone began to discuss if this was a treasure or not, otherwise why would someone have paid such a high price for it? 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones, is there anyone who wants to bid higher? The anchor had already asked the second time. But after asking, he continued to incessantly describe the trash attributes of this object as if he was trying to stall for time. The customers coming in one by one, as long as any one of them had participated in auction frequently for the past few years, on hearing the anchor's words and looking at the object they would immediately be stunned. There was someone who still wanted this thing. Who could be such a wastrel? The auctioneer was also hesitating. This thing was delivered by an old freak, and that old freak was very greedy for money. As long as he would get anything to sell there, he would always keep the base price very high, as if he was afraid that he would get a lower price in the auction. But his strength was very high. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't even dare to tease him. Usually, even if the starting prices were high, it could still be sold, so there was no loss to the auction house, but apart from some products of good quality, most of the things that old freak delivered were just like this. Impressive looking, but useless. Until now, 9 of the 10 items which the auction house had shown while warming the floor were delivered by that old freak. The reason being that the auction wanted to give face to the old freak, and if people didn't buy it, then it was not the auction house's fault and they would have an explanation for him. Then the old freak would be unable to say anything, for example, the auction house hadn't provided any chance to him and become their enemy. But right now someone had paid the high price of 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones for this useless object. How could it not rouse people's interest? Who is the bidder? The master overseeing the affairs immediately asked. Soon after that, someone delivered Yang Chen's information to him. The name was just some nonsense, 99 out of 100 people use false names. But after he found out that Yang Chen's strength was only at the initial foundation stage, the master's heart immediately relaxed and he quickly instructed. If other people don't bid on it, allow him to take it. Keep him under strict surveillance and after auction is over, ask him what this thing is. The master's instructions were immediately passed down. The host obtained those instructions in a flash and did not delay any longer. In any case, this thing had been shown there for so long, it was unlikely that someone else would bid. The host immediately began asking for the 3rd time. 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones, the 3rd. Although everyone was curious, nobody increased the price. 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones was equivalent to 10,000 low-grade spirit stones, and no one wanted to fight over something, the usage of which wasn't clear. 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones, sold. This time, the host didn't wait for too long, and after a short moment, he struck his hammer for the 3rd time, showing that a deal has been reached. In the eyes of others, 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones were quite a lot, but in Yang Chen's case, they were just a drop in the ocean, and for this thing, he would have even been ready to exchange 1 caddy of top-grade spirit stones, let alone 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones. Although that thing appeared to be very unremarkable and did not seem to be useful, Yang Chen knew that this thing appeared only in the spiritual world. It was an ordinary and yet again completely extraordinary heaven measuring ruler. The reason why it was ordinary was because it was made from the most common materials of the spiritual world, but it was also not completely garbage, unlike what the auctioneer was saying. This heaven measuring ruler was currently covered with a layer of ordinary materials of the mortal world to cover up its true colors. As for saying it was extraordinary was because, even in the spiritual world, not everyone could possess something like this. At least as Yang Chen had heard, only people from big sects were in possession of such a thing. Although this thing was named heaven measuring ruler, it didn't measure the heavens. Instead it was used to measure the spirit power in a person's body. It would show different colors for different realms, and the indicators were used to show at which layer was someone in a particular realm. Although this thing didn't have many uses, Yang Chen knew that this was a treasure which everyone would covet, especially experts who were at a bottleneck. If they had this heaven measuring ruler, they would be able to quickly reach the edge of the bottleneck and then make their breakthrough. The reason why the indicators on the heaven measuring ruler were distributed unevenly was because the closer you reach to the limit, the more detail it would show in the change of spirit power. Perhaps people could think that just showing the level of spirit power in their cultivation was not very useful, but Yang Chen knew that during the bottleneck period, the heaven measuring ruler was a greatly enviable treasure. It was known as the bottleneck period because during this long time, cultivators were unable to sense the progress they had made and would use all kinds of methods to find that out so that they could break through. Although it was known as the bottleneck period, in reality it did not mean that the progress completely stopped in that realm. There was merely a small variation which made the cultivator unable to sense their progress, but as long as they diligently trained, small amounts of progress were still made. With the heaven measuring ruler, they could see the transformations in their spirit power cultivation at all times. Even if the variation was very small, the heaven measuring ruler was capable of indicating it clearly. Those cultivators who had never entered the bottleneck period would not be able to imagine being trapped in one stage, with the time needed for a breakthrough being very long. Getting a magic tool which could show that, albeit very slowly, their spirit power was increasing constantly, it could provide a large boost to their confidence. Confidence was one of the most powerful factors for subduing a heart's devil in the case of a cultivator. This fact could be clearly seen from Great Master Wang Yang. Before he had obtained the heaven-seizing pill, Great Master Wang Yang was precisely in the bottleneck period, unable to break through, but since he had received the heaven-seizing pill, His cultivation had changed within a single day, and he had already become the #1 elder in the Pure Yang Palace. The strength of confidence was obvious from this. Wearing the heaven measuring ruler and sensing one's own cultivation grow every day was like having no bottleneck period for a cultivator. It would at most be a stage where one's cultivation was advancing a little slow. The confidence from this was something which the people who hadn't enjoyed the benefits of the heaven measuring ruler would never be able to enjoy. Yang Chen hadn't expected that he would obtain such a great treasure in the mortal world, and at a price of a mere caddy of high-grade spirit stones. In the auction house, one had to pay on the spot and get the delivery. Within the greater Thousand Mountains, there wasn't anyone who could be trusted or to whom the product could be sold on credit. The instant the host had hammered for the third time to complete the deal, it also implied that Yang Chen had to pay immediately. In less time than it takes for half an incense to burn, the heaven measuring ruler was delivered to Yang Chen's room and put up on Yang Chen's table. The heaven measuring ruler was covered by a light membrane, making it inaccessible. Furthermore, on the other side of the table a tray appeared. The meaning was clear. Yang Chen was supposed to put the spirit stones on that tray. Regardless of Yang Chen's doubts, the auction house's way of doing things was quite authentic, exchanging the goods by one hand and the cash by another. When Yang Chen had placed a sufficient amount of spirit stones on the tray, the membrane covering the heaven measuring ruler very quickly disappeared. With almost lightning speed, Yang Chen grabbed the heaven measuring ruler and placed it into the achievement ring without much thinking to ensure that other people didn't try to snatch it. Only after putting the heaven measuring ruler away safely did Yang Chen heave a sigh of relief and began to watch the auction. The period of warming the stage still hadn't ended yet, but the next thing truly was trash, and it had quite an excessive price without any uses. This period lasted for the time it takes for 2 incense sticks to burn. Only then did the auction advance to the next stage. Clearly the biggest news of the auction that time was the selling off the heaven measuring ruler at such a high price. All kinds of people with all kind of intentions were asking about the customer as well as what the heaven measuring ruler was in the end. Yang Chen had certainly anticipated these kind of circumstances, but this was also the result he wanted. The heaven measuring ruler was just a pleasant surprise. If it had not appeared, then the Yang Chen would have bought the best object on display there to give rise to the attention of people and to appear as someone who was rich and overbearing, but with low cultivation. Then, if someone later had come looking for trouble with him, the auction house certainly couldn't shed the responsibility. Middle grade flying sword, the red rainbow sword. Base price. 50 caddies of middle grade spirit stones. 40 caddies of profound metal essence. Base price. 80 caddies of middle grade spirit stones. The inner Dan of a mid-Jidan stage demon beast. Base price. 50 caddies of middle grade spirit stones. 1 copy of the rare book Mimo Sha. Base price. 60 caddies of middle grade spirit stones. One by one, all of the items were being shown and were then auctioned. However, all of these were just trash to Yang Chen, still he was bidding on every item, increasing the price. Clearly displaying the image of a rich person. Naturally, apart from the people of the auction house, nobody knew that the person who was disrupting the flow of things was Yang Chen. After a very brief period of 2 hours, all the items in the first stage were shown and sold, moreover all of them were sold at a price at least double the amount of the base price. This clearly showed the prosperity of the auction house. But the more it was like this, the more vigorously the fire of wrath burned in Yang Chen's heart. If he found the slightest evidence that the auction house had any relation with the attack on his master, he certainly would not mind massacring the entire auction house. Compared to his master, let alone one auction house in the greater market, even if it was something which would offend everyone in this world, Yang Chen still wouldn't mind destroying it. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more. Chapter 150 Rich and Imposing. Yang Chen's actions were monitored by the master of the auction house for the entire time. The master's room was the center of the entire auction house. Inside there, not only could he see the auction of every object, he could also find out everything happening in any room at the same time. When Yang Chen was paying for the heaven measuring ruler, he did not pull out scattered pieces to make up the caddy of high-grade spirit stones, instead he had first pulled out a complete piece of extremely bright top-grade spirit stone. Then he put it back in and took out a pile of scattered spirit stones to pay. Everyone in the auction house knew about Yang Chen's situation. Moreover, Yang Chen would always enter the bidding competition. This made it sufficiently clear that Yang Chen wanted these things. After some objects had been auctioned, Yang Chen had clearly established his image as a rich person who had an inferior cultivation and lacked experience. On the master's side there was a seemingly confident youngster whose gaze was fixed on Yang Chen's every movement, just like the auctioneer. The last item of the auction was an obscure demon beast's horn. The horn was extremely sharp and was of the 9th water attribute. After putting in spirit power, it could even penetrate ordinary flying swords in a single stab. The material of the horn was very hard. Even burning by fire, soaking in water and being hacked by a flying sword wouldn't leave any kind of marks behind. But even the appraiser of the auction house couldn't identify what demon beast this horn belonged to. This world was very large, just in the greater mountains tens of millions of organisms lived, so even if the appraiser was very well learned, it was still impossible for him to know about everything. But one thing was certain. That this belonged to a demon beast at least at peak of the wielding stage or higher, which had fallen off for some unknown reason and had thus been received by someone. Since even the owner of this horn couldn't refine it, he had brought it to the auction house to exchange for spirit stones. Even then, this horn caught the attention of many people. The horn was roughly 2 feet long and innately had the shape of a pointed awl, so there was no need to grind it to turn it into a flying sword. As long as someone could refine it, it would be a high-grade flying sword. For demonstration, this horn was dropped onto the arm of a peak Zhanxian stage demon beast without using any force. The horn effortlessly passed through the arm of the peak Zhanxian stage demon beast without so much as a scratch. The demon beast who was demonstrating there was a demon cultivator who regularly appeared in the Devil Flame Valley. His real identity was that of a thick-skinned rhinoceros with thick leather and skin, which made his defense astonishing. Him being so effortlessly pierced by the beast horn clearly demonstrated the sharpness of the horn. Following this, it was hacked at by a flying sword and burned in fire on the spot, but there still wasn't the slightest amount of harm to it. All of this clearly showed the strength of this beast horn. Naturally, the auction house had clearly announced that if one's cultivation was not sufficient, there was no need to even think about it. But who wouldn't desire for a powerful magic weapon? Even if the cultivation was low at the moment, whoever had a high cultivation from the start. If necessary, it could be bought right now and then refined when the strength was sufficient. All of the previous items had a base price ranging from several caddies of middle-grade spirit stones to several tens of caddies of middle-grade spirit stones, that was several hundred caddies to several thousand caddies of low-grade spirit stones. But this beast horn had a base price of 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones, the same as the heaven measuring ruler. 2 caddies. The instant the auctioneer announced the base price, Yang Chen immediately announced his own price, forcibly increasing the price to double. 2.5 caddies. 3 caddies. 5 caddies. 6 caddies. 6.5 caddies. 7 caddies. 7.5 caddies. 8 caddies. 9 caddies. 9.23 caddies. 9.5 caddies. 9.72 caddies. 9.82. 9.92. 10 caddies. Experts who had been waiting for an opportunity also began to move. Adding a little here, adding a little there, the price of the beast horn had very quickly risen to 10 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. At the greater mountains even a wielding stage expert could not casually take out 1 caddy of high-grade spirit stones easily. Only by pouring in their sex strength would that be possible. The more the bidding extended, the more the number of people increasing the price decreased, and so the increase in price slowed down. Even then, everyone only increased the price after proper consideration. If they didn't bid in small units such as liangs, then customers even wanted to use units as low as qian. It had to be known that 1 qian of high-grade spirit stones was just 1 caddy of middle-grade spirit stones. The atmosphere of the auction house was becoming more and more fiery. Most of the clients were cursing without any restraints in their room if it were not for the fact they didn't know who the others were and it was strictly prohibited to cause trouble in the auction house. Maybe someone would have already rushed to other bidders and attacked them. Yang Chen also hadn't expected that the final item of the auction would be such a pleasant surprise. Other people may not know, but he clearly knew that was the horn of a kilin. An ordinary kilin's horns were similar to deer. But this one was certainly not an ordinary kilin's horn. Rather, this horn had fallen into some kind of torrential water or whirlpool and had been scrubbed for countless years and got this shape. The reason why it was ninth water attributed was probably also because in these countless years it had been infected by the ninth water. Such a treasure, if he had not bumped into it, then he would not have cared, but now that he had found it, how could he let it go to others for such a small amount? After seeing that the bunch of customers had gradually reached the price of 10 caddies of high-grade spirit stones and stopped, the auctioneer had already counted 2 times when Yang Chen raised the bid again. 11 caddies. 11 caddies. Is there someone who wants to bid higher? Looking at this completely new price, the auctioneer had become excited. The increase of 1 liang by 1 liang had made him feel that there was no more suspense left, but then came Yang Chen's sudden action of increasing the price by 1 caddy. How could it not make people excited? He is just an initial foundation stage youngster who doesn't have any method of refining it, so what does he intend to do with it? The confident youngster sitting beside the master of the auction house asked, wrinkling his brows while looking at Yang Chen effortlessly bidding. Even if he waited with refining until he could, it wouldn't be too late. The master smiled. This kind of question was really quite childish, but with the identity of that youngster, he had to reply. Or perhaps, he has some special method of refining. Although his age is not too old, he is quite well off. That youngster thoughtfully said, with his gaze fixed on Yang Chen. Young master, we auction house people cannot break the rules ourselves, otherwise nobody would give us any face in the greater mountains. Hearing that youngster's words, the master of the auction house immediately understood what he was thinking and hastily warned him. Don't worry, I know what to do. The youngster revealed a sneer at the corner of his mouth and slowly said this, attentively watching Yang Chen. One unknown beast's horn, although it was very sharp and had good quality, was not enough to make the people of the greater mountains invest a price more than 10 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. Most of the cultivators come there with the intention of making a breakthrough, some others also came to look for ingredients, but it was no one's main aim to invest in something which nobody recognized and which couldn't be refined. After Yang Chen had bid 11 caddies of high-grade spirit stones, the auctioneer turned silent, waiting for the clients to increase it. But after waiting for a short time, no one had increased the bid. 11 caddies, does anyone wants to bid higher? 11 caddies, 2. The auctioneer again announced the bid, but waiting for him was still silence. Moving forward, the auctioneer was suddenly startled, as if he had seen something unfathomable and immediately said with excitement. 15 caddies. 15 caddies. Does anyone want to bid higher? The sudden increase of 4 caddies created a ruckus in the auction house. It had to be known that 4 caddies were equivalent to 40,000 caddies of low-grade spirit stones. The spirit power from that was sufficient for a Jidan initial stage expert to reach the peak Jidan stage. This addition of 4 caddies, who could even spend so much money? Young master, this. In the moment the master of the auction house was not careful, the youngster at his side had added 4 caddies of high-grade spirit stones, which gave the master huge fright. Even if all the things which had been previously auctioned were added in, the total amount would be just around this. So if Yang Chen renounced right now, the auction house would have suffered a loss this time. I want to know what exactly it is. The young master nervously said, with his eyes glued on the scene in Yang Chen's room. But a trace of jealousy could be seen on his face. Does he not have a piece of top-grade spirit stone? Still afraid to pay? Even with his identity as young master, he could not casually take out 10 caddies of high-grade spirit stones, but Yang Chen, who was just at the initial foundation stage, could easily take out a piece of top-grade spirit stone. How could it not make him go green with jealousy? Our appraisal master had said that the highest price of this thing would be 12 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. The master was somewhat vexed, but he was just a shopkeeper, so the gap between his identity and the young master's was too large, and he simply couldn't criticize the actions of that young master and could only quote the highest possible price. The young master had also begun to feel the regret as soon as he had opened his mouth. Why couldn't he help but try to embarrass Yang Chen? Perhaps seeing Yang Chen pull out the top-grade spirit stones had made him realize of his own inferiority. He was the majestic young master, yet every day he would be hard-pressed for money, but that person was strolling around, carrying a piece of top-grade spirit stone. It looked as if this was just his allowance. This strong contrast made him ashamed to death. But right now, he began to tense, if Yang Chen backed out, this thing would fall in his hands, and he didn't have enough spirit stones to compensate for this. 20 caddies. Before the auctioneer could shout the second time, Yang Chen had already made his bid. Directly doubling the price at which all other people had stopped before. Bang. This was not just the auctioneer's cry of surprise, but everyone had been astonished. Who could spend so much money to buy a beast horns whose method of refining was not known? Could it be that this was some rare treasure? Everyone began to make enquiries, and the eyes of the master of the auction house also brightened. Yang Chen had only won the bid of 2 things. The first was the heaven measuring ruler, which was in the beginning, at 1 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. But this time, he had spent even more money. 20 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. These 2 high bids, both made auction master and young master, not know what to do, since everything about Yang Chen was an enigma. Furthermore, Yang Chen was very young and his cultivation very low, but he still had a top-grade spirit stone. All of this had an enormous attractive force, which made the master pay more attention to Yang Chen. The young master did not dare to open his mouth again. If the beast horn really ended up with him, his gains would not make up for the losses. Moreover, he had already formed another plan. That was to learn the secret of the beast horn from somewhere else. If it really was a unique treasure, then the beast horn had to return to him. Young master, no matter what you have planned, you must be careful during work. The master, who was also staring at Yang Chen's figure, repeatedly warned him. You cannot allow anyone to know that it was your doing by any means. We cannot break the rules. I know. When he heard the price, the young master had heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Right now the master was still repeatedly warning him like a child. Did he think that this young master didn't know this? After impatiently answering him, he immediately stood up and called out an attendant, giving him some instructions, and only then did he sit back down. I have arranged for good people to take care of it. Within 100 miles of the Devil Flame Valley, no one will attack him. The young master softy said, but it made the auction master who was asking feel relived. Nonetheless, the auction master showed no response and continued to sit there, neither opposing nor agreeing, as if he had not heard this. But young master knew that this was his way of informing him that he would not be responsible for this matter. After the price of 20 caddies of high-grade spirit stones, he no longer dared to contest with Yang Chen. When he thought that, for a trifling price of 20 caddies of high-grade spirit stones, he had obtained a Killin's horn, Yang Chen did not know if he should rejoice or make fun of them. In any case, it was a great feeling, as if a tasty meat pie had fallen into his hands. 2 bids, including one of 20 caddies of high-grade spirit stones. This was already the highest transaction in the history of the auction house. Yang Chen was convinced that he certainly had to have given rise to the attention of people in the auction house. The next step was to just sit tight and wait for the robbers. Yang Chen was not certain if someone would attack him, but from the instant he had left the auction house, he had discovered that someone had already begun to trail him. Even though Yang Chen was still wearing the appearance hiding mantle, and everyone looked the same, which should hide which one Yang Chen was. Nonetheless, Yang Chen could sense that kind of concentrated gaze on him. After much thinking, he could only think of one explanation. That there was some problem with this mantle handed out by the auction house. Those people had recognized him by this mantle. Holding those things, Yang Chen did not stop in the Devil Flame Valley and, similar to cultivators who had obtained some treasure, directly departed the Devil Flame Valley on his flying sword. After Yang Chen had flown for over 10 miles, behind him a group of trackers appeared. The leading person was holding a compass and joyfully followed the direction Yang Chen, in which had left, and began to chase after him. What they hadn't noticed was that Yang Chen, who was quickly fleeing ahead of them, had already shown the trace of a sneer on his face. If you're enjoying the content, please give it a like, comment, and subscribe to Fantasy World for more.